poor people are going to be one who are going to get this death sentence. So, okay, I don't know, man. Our situation, Shem. Let me listen to other listeners.
Okay. All right. We are out in Mthatha. Magdalene, you're in Mangaung. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy.
Yes, morning, Magdalene.
Hi, Cathy. You know what, Nay? Since that within oneself. The thing is that nowadays we left to remember something, the daily bread. If ever we know what is daily bread, because daily bread teach you how to act, how to do things where and when. So the behavior and the attitude of the person comes from inside to the outside. So I'm going to say the day we go back to know who we are and why are we here for, and make use of the daily bread, because the daily bread is the director of life. It's the one which tells us what to do, when and how and when. By so saying, I'm trying to say, if ever you are a hypocrite in life, you are going to act like it. Thank you.
Okay. Magdalene, thanks for that comment. We're going to take a quick break. I'm back with more of your calls. Remember, you can dial in on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial for our studio line, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. Yeah, so we continue then to take your calls on the open line. Remember, it is your national round table, so you get to put whatever matter of interest on the national agenda.
Babina Noko returns to the battlefield with a great strategy to display a melody of victory. But the citizens are shaking their heads. Eric Tinkler's boys are confident that they will land successfully in the last four. This is the MTN8 quarterfinal. Wafa Wafa. Catch Sekhukhune United FC and Cape Town City FC on Saturday, 10 August at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SA Women's Struggles Journal. Hashtag Women's Month. Celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women's development, SAFM celebrates the power, resilience and brilliance of women. It's Women's Month and we're honoring the incredible contributions of women in our communities, our workplaces and our homes. Join SAFM in recognizing the achievements, strengths and spirit of women everywhere. Let's uplift and empower each other today and every day. SAFM, leading the Women's Month conversation. SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Are you shopping around for the best car insurance deal on the market? 46-year-old Zanele got a great deal on her car insurance when she called Outsurance. She now pays only $1,313 to insure her white 2023 Audi Q2 1.4T FSI S-Line S-Tronic. Get an Outsurance quote and see if you could save. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
Clifford, you're calling us from Boroka. Good morning.
Hi, Cathy Mohlahlana. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Yes, it's been a while, yeah?
Yes, it has been.
Yeah, you're fine, though.
I'm well, Clifford. Go for it.
So, yeah, man, Cathy, this, I don't know whether to call this Moro. I don't know what to call it. That's stuck.
I think calling him by his name is also fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, I think there's no way there's no title for him anyway. Because I don't know why we even regard them as pastors, the media. Because those guys are just hustlers, man.
Yeah.
They're just hustlers. They want money out of desperation that most of the South Africans are facing. Because if you go around Cathy, everybody here in South Africa wants to have money, but in a manner that you don't understand. How could these people do this? How can you follow that guy as a pastor? How can you follow Omotoso as a pastor, as a congregation? Yeah, amen. And And I thought I've only these people during these abuses. They see these things. Some of the parents, they take their own daughters to these pastors' mansions.
Yeah, look, Clifford, I mean, you're touching on a bigger issue there, right? You talk about Omotoso. Remember those CRL hearings? The evidence that came out of there? I think it's, is it Pastor Zondo or Zondi? Somewhere on the East
all the
Rand.
pastors were charged with this abuse. More than 80% of them. I'm telling you. There were always allegations against them with child abuse. Most of our pastors, these new pastors, flamboyant ones, with bodyguards, they are like movie stars. What kind of a pastor is this? You as a part of the congregation, what comes into your mind when you see this, all the mess in the media, in the social
It's a disgrace, Clifford, and it is shameful, to say the least. It is shameful, absolutely shameful.
And then about this, tell me, what is this South African Council of Churches says about this so-called pastors? They just keeping quiet. It's like, you never heard them say anything normal, please, man. You don't do what you are supposed to be doing. What is SACC? Why they're so quiet? But come the conference of the ANC, they'll be there for Mr. Mafopa. The ANC. While people are messed up in the name of Christianity.
Okay. Clifford?
Yeah, and then last one, Cathy. I'm posting. I need to know what's wrong with Nabatwaban in coming to swimming, because we always see white people. So now we can answer so many but one more kita baya badi mukar badi bulu but one.
Clifford, bye-bye. Clifford wants to know why it is we don't have more black swimmers in the pool. And I imagine he's also referencing because of the Olympics, right? You've got Tatiana Smith, and South Africa has always produced really world-class swimmers. But yeah, very few of those swimmers are black swimmers. And it really speaks to issues of access yet again, how early it is that some children are exposed to water, exposed to pools. I don't know, Clifford, if Kitabajabadimo, as you are saying, I don't even know how to translate that into English. Somebody's going to have to help me out on the WhatsApp voice notes. Yeah, okay. Bonakela, you're in Kailija. Good morning.
A very good morning, Cathy. How are you doing?
Good, thank you, Bonakela. Go for it.
Listen, I wanted to hijack this topic about Umboro, but I'm going to make a comment when I'm finished with what I was going to talk about, what I've prepared. My take today would be for pop crew supporting some corners there in KZN, shooting and killing criminals, supporting them. I'm happy with that statement issued by pop crew, because there's no way, Cathy, even South Africans who are listening right now whereby I hear people complaining why the KZN people are killing people. Seemingly as if Ntantam Kwanas is doing a wrong thing, telling the police to kill the criminals. How on earth do you expect the police to arrest someone with AK-47 in his hand and starting shooting at police? What do we expect them to do? To smile and run and take a car? I mean, there's no such thing. They must be killed. So, Paul, big up to you, supporting and knowing fully aware what you're facing, guys. So, we're supporting you 100%. They must be killed. For instance, here in Kylie,
look.
Allow me to finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Allow me to finish, my dear, because I'm going to forget what I was going to talk.
Okay,
go
ahead.
About, because something that I prepared. Here it happened in the Eastern Cape as well. Case Kamahuku. 5 people were killed. They started shooting at the police. What were those police expected to do then in Case Kamahuku, Eastern Cape? So coming now, it seems to be nationally now, throughout the country. It happened here. I'm listening on radio right now. 8 were killed here in town too, with AK-47. What are we really expecting? What do we expect the police to do, honestly speaking? I mean, I hear you talking about people where someone was wrongly killed. That was very unfortunate. But we're talking about people who are carrying AK-47, shooting at the police, honestly speaking. Shooting at the police, what do you expect them to do? And just to finish up with this Mboro thing, Pastor Mboro, my take or my comment regarding this whole thing, my view, with all those people calling themselves pastors, bishops, you know what defines a bishop or a pastor? It's something that he talks and the actions. For me personally, I always listen to people, I'm a pastor, I'm a bishop. But to listen to the actions and the way he talks, the way he's doing things, for me, I don't respect him.
Okay.
I'm not apologetic about that.
All right, Bonakele, let's leave it there. Bonakele out in Khayelitsha. Sizwe, you're in Durban. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy, and the listeners. I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome to the show, Sizwe.
Thank you very much. Look, Cathy, I'm at pains when I listen to how you try to figure out things in this country as far as the law or lawlessness is concerned, because I'm thinking, does the country want to be ruled by law? Are we at a stage where we don't want to be ruled by law? We want to be just free for all country, kind of, because I'm trying to look at families, schools, everywhere where there needs to be some kind of law. It looks to me like our country doesn't want to be ruled by law anymore, and in not wanting to be ruled by law, then creeps in all these kind of acts and wrong things. So I think my take is it all failed at the family level, where the government is trying to encroach and decide on how I should raise my family. And because if I can bring in the spiritual kind of it, is I believe that when God brings Cathy under Mohlahlana's family, he knows that Mohlahlana's family will raise Cathy the right way, and therefore there should be no interference from anyone. Otherwise, you want Cathy to be a Botha or a Luthuli or something. So my take is, if we can allow families to raise kids the way they know how, like the way it was back in the days, where people will have some control over families and control them the way they know how, then that will come out to communities and so on to other levels. And that person will be molded from when they're young.
Okay.
So now the government is interfering in how we need to raise our kids, and then now when they grown up, they fail to control them because they didn't allow us to contribute when they were young. And there's a
let's leave it there. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time.
In our top stories, police probe burglary at IEC offices in Leboa-Kgomo and Israeli rights group allege Palestinian prisoners abused. Good morning. Police are investigating a burglary at the Electoral Commission offices in Leboa-Kgomo outside Polokwane. Police spokesperson Malesela Lidwaba says employees discovered the offices were broken into when returning to work yesterday. Lidwaba says computers, a laptop and election management devices amounting to over 77,000 rand have been stolen.
The police were called to the scene. In the office, 2 computers, 1 laptop, 2 management devices, and grocery were stolen during the burglary. A case of business burglary was opened for further investigation. Police are urging anyone who might have any information on the burglary to contact Crime Stop number 08600 111.
The Northwest MEC for Community Safety and Transport Management, Wessels Morueng, says he intends to engage with the National Police Minister, Senzo Mchunu, to assist with capacity and resource challenges at police stations in and around Klerksdorp. The MEC led unannounced oversight visits to police stations in the area last night. The visit comes after 8 people were shot dead during an incident at a tavern in Kanana near Klerksdorp over a week ago. Morueng says his visit to police stations in Klerksdorp was aimed at evaluating policing concerns in the crime-infested area.
The area of Klerksdorp is one of the hard hit in as far as crime is concerned. That is why I have made it a project that we must get this thing of crime in this area right. But where do we first start? We first start at our police stations because that's where the service to the community should be executed. But the challenge mainly that our members have raised to me is tools of trade, which is oftentimes community members, they complain that our cars, they arrive very late to the scene and all that.
Western Cape Minister of Police Oversight and Community Safety Andrew Mare has applauded police for confiscating several rifles and ammunition from alleged cash-in-transit robbers in Khayelitsha. 8 alleged robbers were shot dead and 5 others arrested during a multidisciplinary operation in Town 2. Mare says investigations are ongoing.
I commend the police on an excellently planned and executed operation in Khayelitsha. The arms and ammunition confiscated will no longer be used to terrorize our people. The suspects arrested will be able to provide further information on the origin and planned use of the confiscated weapons and ammunition. I congratulate Provincial Commissioner Patekile and his team on a great success.
The ANC will wrap up its back-to-back NEC meeting and the NEC Lekgotla in Boksburg East of Johannesburg later today. The 6-day gathering was called to reflect on the outcomes of the elections and the program of action for next year. Several ANC NEC members are bold to brief the media on crime and GBV, immigration, local government intervention and water issues, as well as inclusive growth, job creation, investing in people and tackling the high cost of living, among others. Alliance partners Kusatu, the SACP and Sanku have also made their contributions to the NEC Lekgotla and used the opportunity to raise their opposition against the GNU. But ANC spokesperson Zuko Gotlimpi says they'll have to find each other on that issue.
When the Alliance spoke, they were quite militant about their views, and that's what we want. We want people to sit in one room and say, we disagree with you on 1, 2, 3. This is our reading of the situation. We think these are the implications of the tactical move that you are making. But it doesn't mean when the Alliance member says this is their view, the best way for the ANC to demonstrate that we are listening is to abandon the ANC's thinking and just take what the Alliance partner is saying. We've got to try synthesize these views. I can promise you this. As time goes on, the Alliance will be singing in one tune about the GNU. There's nothing untoward about what is happening. Eventually, we will find each other. We will have a common understanding.
And finally, Israel's leading human rights organizations say conditions inside Israeli prisons holding Palestinian detainees amount to torture. It's the latest in a series of reports, including one last week by the United Nations, which contained shocking allegations of abuse of Palestinian prisoners. The BBC's Paddy Maguire has more.
A report by B'Tselem called Welcome to Hell has graphic testimony from 55 recently released Palestinians who were detained by Israel since the war in Gaza began in October. The organisation says their accounts point to a systematic policy of abuse, starvation, violence and humiliation. Most of those interviewed were released without prosecution. Israel says that its use of a measure which allows suspects to be detained almost indefinitely without charge is necessary and compliant with international law. Its prisons and detention centres have become overwhelmed since the conflict began.
Recapping the top story, police are investigating a burglary and the Electoral Commission offices in Libuahomo outside Polokwane. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Oscar and Emmy winner Kevin Costner is John Dutton, a sixth-generation homesteader and devoted father. John controls the largest contiguous ranch in the United States, operating in a corrupt world where politicians are compromised by influential oil and lumber corporations and where land grabs make developers billions. Shifting alliances, unsolved murders, open wounds, and hard-earned respect puts Dutton's property in constant conflict with those it borders, an expanding town, an Indian reservation, and America's first national park. Channel your inner drama with Yellowstone, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SA Schools football comes alive on the 9th and 10th of August 2024 at Sarah Park, Wits University for the SA Schools National Championship from 9 a.m. daily. The best under 15 boys and girls representing their province's school teams will battle it out to try and be selected into the under 15 schools national team. Bring your family and camp chairs to support your provincial under 15 team. If you're not in Gauteng, catch the games on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net. SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show. I'm Cathy Mohlahlana, and coming up in this hour, it is a Tuesday, so we are talking finance with Brian Hirsch. Thank you all for the engagement on the open line. I will be bringing you some of your WhatsApp voice notes. Just a reminder that today with Brian, we are talking about the two-pot system. So we are unpacking what exactly this two-pot system is going to entail. I know a lot has already been said about the two-pot system so far, but I know that we still need to keep talking about it because so many people still don't understand how exactly it's all supposed to work and what benefit it will accrue to them at the end of the day. So we're going to hopefully try and make sense of that for you within the next hour. We'll do that after the latest WhatsApp voice notes.
Good morning to the listeners of SAFM. Good morning, Ask Cathy. Good morning to Lebo and the team. Ask Cathy, death penalty is not going to change anything. the data is just not there to support a death penalty as a deterrence to any sort of crime. I understand the people that are bringing up the death penalty. I know where you're coming from, but the data is just not there. It's not going to make a difference. What we need to focus on is our arrest rates, our conviction rates, and police presence. But most importantly, we need to focus on consistent sentencing. A minimum of 2 years, maximum of 5 years. So in Cape Town, I might get the minimum, which is 2 years, and somebody in Gauteng gets the maximum, which is 5 years, for the same exact crime. So we need to focus on those things.
Good morning, Cathy. No, Cathy, I live in KZN. And as far as the Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's declaration of war to criminals is concerned, I fully support it. Because in all the encounters where the suspects were killed, there has never been an incident whereby the police randomly shoot on the person that was walking on the street unarmed. All those people that were killed were heavily armed, and they are the ones who firstly shot at the police. So I support them. I live in KZN, and the crime here, Cathy, is very, very, very worrisome. So whatever Mkhwanazi can do is not an alpha and omega of our problem, but at least he's helping us get rid of these notorious criminals who are holding us at hostage.
Hi, Cathy. Yeah, it seems that the Western Cape had got a good tip-up from their Eastern Cape counterparts on how to deal with this dangerous cash-in transit robberies, because last night 8 suspects were gunned down by police in down to Khayelitsha. They were heavily armed with AK-47 rifles and such sorts of ammunitions. Yeah, they were killed last night in Cape Town down to Khayelitsha. Yeah, it seems they got a tip up from the KZN police actually. Yeah, it looks Khayelitsha down too.
Hi, this is Cathy Mohlahlana here from PE. I'll try and be super quick with this important point, but I really need more time. The police are very disappointing and very upsetting to be saying that they want to investigate the issue, or they are still investigating the issue. As first respondents, when you pick up the phone and you call the police, they're supposed to respond immediately to the scene or to the situation. They're supposed to assess it and enforce the law immediately. Mboro and his thugs were supposed to have been arrested on the spot, processed by the police station, chucked in a holding cell, and wait to appear before a magistrate. Then we can follow due process after that. Whether they get accepted or granted bail, it's fine. Then they can investigate. But we can't have a case whereby we call upon first respondents and for them to tell us that they're still investigating. Investigating what? These guys were a threat, an imminent threat to people's lives. Luzuko from PE.
Talking finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
If you have a life insurance but you are smoking weed only, do they consider you as a smoker or a non-smoker?
He wants to know that if you smoke weed, marijuana.
But I can tell you, if you tell the insurance company, I don't smoke, but I smoke weed and marijuana, I think they may either load you or decline you.
I know why, man. Yeah, hey, cause I'm high, cause I'm high, cause I'm high. Are you really high though, man? He really is high, man. Shoop, shoop, shooby-doo-wah. Get jiggy with it. Skippity-dee-bop.
Brian Hirsch, good morning.
Good morning to you, Cathy, and to all our listeners and viewers, because we've got our podcast here being filmed.
That's the live stream, Brian.
Yeah.
So the live stream, the podcast is what we put up after the show.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about the two-pot retirement system, Brian.
Yeah. We've been talking about it regularly for the last 9 months, and now I wanted to give people information. I did say on my TV program last night that I will be dealing with the two-pot system on SAFM this morning. So firstly, what is the two-pot system?
Okay, do we need to get our pens and paper out and take notes? Is it that kind of a session?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I hope my explanation deals with it. Naturally, if you don't understand anything, it's no point phoning me. What you need to do is you need to contact your retirement funds, whoever your retirement fund. In other words, if you've got a retirement annuity with an insurance company, you need to contact the insurance company. If you've got a pension or provident fund, you need to contact your fund, your company's brokers. You need to speak to your company.
Okay.
But what is the two-pot retirement system? And firstly, it's a system, is a reform that will allow retirement fund members to make partial withdrawals from their retirement funds before retirement. Up to now, the only time you could take money out of your retirement fund is you could use your retirement fund as security against a loan when you got anything to do with property, buying property, or doing alterations to your property. When you resign, if you die, if you're retrenched, any of those you could have now you'll be able to take money out of your retirement. That means members need not to resign to access part of their retirement fund. And let me say this to members, do not resign now because you're scared of the two-pot system. The two-pot system has advantage, certainly for what I would call lower income earners, and I'll explain that it's meant for the new system to apply to all active retirement funds members in both private sector and public sector, except for the old generation or legacy retirement annuity of funds with no active participating members, such as funds that are in liquidation, beneficiary funds, closed funds or dormant funds. Pensioners and members of provident funds who were 55 and older on the 1st of March 2021, yes, 55 on the 1st of March 2021, who have not opted to be part of the two-pot system will also be excluded. Why the two-pot system? This system is meant to support, obviously, long-term retirement savings while offering flexibility to help fund members in financial distress. In many cases, retirement funds are the only savings that most people have, and under the current system, some members need to resign to access this retirement fund. The two-pot system, retirement fund system, is meant to help fund members in times of financial difficulty by allowing access to the savings component before retirement. It's advisable that members use the saving component carefully and only when it's in dire need. How will it work? The reform creates a saving component, a retirement component, and a vested component, which is quite complicated because we're talking about a two-pot system, but it's actually three different pots. So you need to understand that. Only the savings component and retirement component can receive retirement contributions from the 1st of September. The vested component will house all your retirement benefits accumulated by the member before the implementation date. Investment growth will still be credited to this component. So what will happen? From the 1st September 2024, retirement contributions will be split by your retirement fund into a saving component and a retirement component. And that's only dealing with future contributions after the 1st of September. And it'll be split as follows. 2/3 will go into the retirement component and 1/3 will go into the savings component. So, for example, if a person retires in September 24 and they're contributing 900 Rand per month to their retirement fund, 300 Rand will go to the savings and 600 will go into the retirement. And then over the 12 months in the savings component, you've been putting 300 Rand a month, with 12 times 300 is 3,600. You will be able to draw at the end of that year 3,600. If there was 5,000, if there was 10,000 in that pot, you will be able to withdraw that money. You can only do it once a year, and one does not need to make a withdrawal from that savings component every year. So you can draw next year, the year after, and then you can not draw for 2 or 3 years. The minimum that you can draw at any one time is 2,000 Rand, and as I said, only one withdrawal will be allowed. Now, this is the catch. That withdrawal money going forward, that will be taxed, and that will be taxed at what we call marginal rates of tax. So let me explain to you. When you make a contribution to a retirement fund, the contribution you make is deducted from your taxable income, and your taxable income less the retirement contribution is then taxed. So you're getting a full tax deduction based on your earnings. So when you now draw money from the savings component, it will be taxed as if it was income. So it will be added to your taxable income. And if it's added to your taxable income, it obviously will push you up into another bracket. And you could pay tax from as little as 18%, as much as 45%. And that's why I've said it's really for lower income earners, because people in a high tax bracket, if you're earning R1 million a year and you draw out 10,000 Rand from your savings component, you will pay tax of that 10,000 Rand of 4,000 Rand. So, but if you're a lower earner and you're earning and you draw 10,000 Rand and you're a lower earner, you may only pay tax of 1,800 Rand. But you will pay tax. Bear in mind, you will pay tax. How will this tax work? It'll be work very simply in the same way as if you were drawing from a retirement fund. Your employer has to get a tax directive. The receiver of revenue will give a directive. They simulate that figure. It's not as if you've got to then calculate your tax, and they'll work out a tax payment. And that's how it'll work. But let me say this also. If you owe money to revenue, even if you owe 50 Rand, they will deduct that 50 Rand from any money. So be very careful if you owe money to revenue, you haven't got your tax returns up to date. Be very careful when you make the withdrawal, because you could lose money. Now, let's talk about the retirement fund accumulated as at the 31st of August. This is what I referred to, not in the two-pot, which was the saving and retirement portion, but this is the vested portion. This is all your future past contributions as at the 31st. And that you will not put any more contributions into that fund. That will be vested. It will stay there. And from that portion, you're allowed a one-off withdrawal after the 1st September with a maximum of 10%, with a maximum of 30,000 Rand. So if you have in your if you have in the vested component 200,000, you'll only be able to draw 10%, a one-off of 20,000. If you've got 400,000, 10% is 40,000, but you maximum of 30,000. Again, let me make the point, it will be taxable. And that component now will continue to grow in terms of the fund that you're invested in. The danger is of the new two-pot system, which I don't think too many people are aware of. When you leave your job and you're under 55, previously you could withdraw. Now you are forced to preserve those funds. Now, the big disadvantage for people who have left their jobs in their 30s and 40s, and every time they leave their job, they take the funds, pay the tax, and use those funds. Now, you will not be able to withdraw until retirement. I don't think many people are aware of that. That is a big change. Up to the funds that you've got in, up to the 31st of August, nothing changes. You'll be able to withdraw those funds. You'll be paying tax. And when you retire, but under the two-pot system, you will not be able to withdraw them. Will the amount allocated to the vested component grow with interest? Yes, it will still be invested on your half. If you don't take money out of the savings pot, it will still be invested for you. And I just want to repeat. So, for example, if you have 200,000 in your value of your fund now as of the 31st of August, the seeding amount will be 20,000, 10%. If you've got more than that, you'll only be able to take out 30,000 Rand. Now, the danger is it's unlikely that all funds will be able to pay out withdrawals immediately on the 1st September. Funds also need to amend their rules. The insurance companies need to be up to date. And we understand that whereas most companies have 10,000 retirees and withdrawals a month, there could be 200,000 people Now, what must you do to make sure that you're ahead of the queue? I have told you previously what you need to do. You need to please ensure that your retirement fund has your correct details. This is important so they can keep contact to you about the reform. Keep an eye out for communications from your retirement fund administrators or the trustees. Carefully consider your options and seek advice from an accredited financial advisor. Identify your long-term needs. And if you are over the age of 55, you can opt in, but you've then got to inform the company that if you are over 55 after the August 2021, you have to actually not automatically go into the two-pot system. You need to inform them you would like to go into the two-pot system. You still will only be limited to 10% of the monies that are in your account as at the 31st of August, but future monies you'll have 2/3 in the retirement pot and 1/3 in the savings pot.
Thank you for that breakdown, Brian. I think just to go back to the issue of the preservation fund. So if you have people that are listening to the conversation and let's say they had plans for that money, maybe people are in the process of buying houses, making significant investments, whatever the case might be. If somebody resigns before the end of August, are they still going to be able to preserve their money and withdraw from that preservation fund?
Yes, they'll still. Well, let's understand. You've got money in the fund. You resign before the 31st of August. You will be able to access your funds, pay tax. But if you resign on the 1st of September, you're in the exact same situation because that vested portion as at the 31st of August is everything that's accumulated in your lifetime up to the 31st of August. Nothing changes going forward. So you do not need to resign before the 31st of August because next October, November, December, next year, on that portion, you will still have full access. The only difference is you can draw 10% up to 30,000 without resigning, where you couldn't do that previously. But if any monies that are invested for you in your retirement funds as at the 31st of August, everything remains the same and everything is open. It's only future contributions, 2/3 of your future contributions that you will have to preserve until retirement. It's only future money. So everyone starts on the 1st of September with a clean slate.
So then people with preservation funds shouldn't worry about only accessing 30%. I mean, up to 10% of what is in their funds.
No, preservation fund, remember, let's not confuse us, is money that you preserved where you moved money from previous retirement funds into a preservation fund.
Yes.
You have a right to draw that 30,000, but at any stage going forward, you can still make that one withdrawal, either in full or part, without any penalty.
Okay.
And remember, with a preservation fund, you're not making future contributions because it's money you've preserved.
Okay.
So we're talking about retirement funds where people are making future contributions.
All right, fair enough. We're going to continue the conversation with Brian. We'll take your calls on the phone line. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. Get in touch and please ask all your questions related to the two-pot system.
Good morning. In the headlines, a man in Kabokweni outside White River in Mpumalanga has shot dead his wife and himself in an alleged domestic feud incident earlier this morning. Provincial Police spokesperson Donald Mhluli says police and members of emergency services have been dispatched to the scene. Police are investigating a burglary at the Electoral Commission offices in Leboagomo outside Polokwane, and the EFF leader Julius Malema has called on Eastern Cape's Rhodes University's name to be changed, saying it bears the name of apartheid oppressors. During his speech last night at the Makanda-based university's Leadership Week on the topic of security and good governance. Details on these and other stories at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 55 to the dollar, 23 rand 64 to the pound, and 20 rand 27 to the euro. Markets in Asia extended gains at the closing bell. The JSE mixed in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are currently trading higher. Gold is trading at $2,408, platinum $920 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $76.43 a barrel.
Nothing beats the feeling of relaxing on your couch after a long, hard day, getting rid of those work clothes and feeling the freedom of being in your PJs. Throwing off that lace front, undoing your hair, that makeup, voila, gone. It's going to be a quiet, relaxed night. Well, not on S3. Bring a whole lot of vroom to your weeknights with Top Gear Season 16. Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. and Top Gear specials such as Top Gear from A to Z and Top Gear The Races. Friday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Attention ladies, join us on Saturday, August 17th, 2024 for the Star Choice is Yours Women's Day event at Altitude Fourways, a day dedicated to empowerment, inspiration and transformation. Engage with dynamic speakers, attend interactive conversations and connect with amazing women just like you. The event will be hosted by the fabulous Unatingai. Don't miss out on this opportunity to celebrate and elevate yourself. Get your tickets now at www.quicket.co.za for 550 Rand, drinks, food and a gift bag included. Plus, stand a chance to win an honor product. This incredible event is powered by independent media and the Honor 200 series.
Paying your TV license means that you can tune in to the Expresso Morning Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Mondays to Fridays right here on S3. Enjoy our entertainment, recipes and important current affairs and updates. All of this for less than 74 cents a day or 265 Rand for an entire year. For superfast, secure and convenient payment from any device, go onto tvlrc.co.za and click on the Fast Pay button for payment in under 3 minutes. Make a difference with Expresso and TV licenses and pay yours.
Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
We continue talking finance with Brian Hirsch. Brian, of course, I've got a number of questions for you already around this two-pot system. Let me begin with this one. Hi, Cathy and Brian. Have the institutions already allocated the funds into the savings pot and will allow members to withdraw on the 1st of September from that pot, or the institutions will allocate from the 1st of September from the August contributions? So I think this listener here, Brian, is asking about the steps, right? What are the steps that all of this is going to follow? And perhaps if you can also touch on, you had mentioned the last time that it was up to members to contact their funds and ensure that their funds have signed up for the two-pot system. Because if they had not signed up, there would be issues with them being able to access a portion of their savings.
Yeah.
So I think maybe answer
Okay,
those two.
so let me answer the first part. The second part of it, have they signed up? Every pension fund will sign up. It's not about signing up. It's about amending the rules and the rule being registered. So that may take a lot, but let's not confuse it. They all are calculating at the moment what is your vested pot. That is the value of your funds as at the 31st of August. Remember, every year the fund your fund gives you a membership statement, and the administrators have calculated what the value of your fund is at that particular date. And if you resign 3 months later, they've got to go back to their figures and then calculate those extra 3 months in terms of contributions made and what the performance of the funds have been. So at the 31st of August, every fund will have calculated calculated. That's what they're busy doing. They don't need a rule change. Maybe they just got to do it by the 31st of August. They've got to have that number. So let's assume that number is 500,000 rand. So that will be ready in terms of being able to withdraw the 10% up to a maximum of 30,000. Going forward, they don't have all they have to do is have the rule registered, because you're only going to your September contribution will now go into the two pots. 2/3 of your September contribution, let's keep it simple, 1,200 rand, 800 rand will go into the retirement pot, and 400 rand will go into the savings pot. You can only draw once a year, so at the end of the first year, that individual will have 400 times 12, 4,800 in their savings pot. So that they don't have to have ready by the 1st September. They have to have their systems ready to allocate the 2/3 and 1/3. But as a member, your vested portion they will have ready. But they've just got to make sure the rule is registered to allow for that withdrawal. Because remember, a pension fund is very much governed to protect members, that no one can defraud the fund. So these rules have to be registered.
Is there a likelihood that we will go beyond the 1st of September and you will have funds that have not registered these amendments that they need to, and therefore delay or stall the process of people who may want to be able to access those funds?
Cathy, I have no doubt there will be delinquent companies, the same way some companies don't make contributions. And I can tell you the regulators do not act as they should by insisting. They write letters to the companies and saying, you haven't made contributions. But we've had many queries and calls I've had from people who say the employer has not paid over the money. Yes, but employees need to put pressure on the employer to make sure that they get their house in order. So don't just sit back. If your company is one that's got you contributing to a fund and the employer has not yet got the rules, get together as an employee body and put pressure on your HR department to get it done, so you are able to access part of the vested portion, which is, again, I repeat, monies that you've contributed that's grown as at the 31st of August.
In terms of the statement, Brian, so if we're looking at the statements, monthly statements that members would receive, is there going to be a clear description of the allocations, a breakdown of this is what you have in your vested pot, this is what you have in your savings pot?
Yes, when you get your membership statement next year, being September 2024 into 2025, they will show you this is your vested portion, this is how much you've withdrawn, this is what your contribution has been from the 1st September, this is the breakdown of the retirement portion and the savings portion. They'll have to give you that information. I would imagine they've all set up that membership statement to deal with it. It's just a question of getting the numbers. It's not that complicated going forward, because it's like a new fund starting on the 1st September, and we're going to allocate future contributions. Just remember one thing. When a company makes contributions to a retirement fund, there are other components that are costed. You normally have some life cover, there could be some disability, there could be some dreaded disease, there could be some funeral benefits, and then there are administration charges. So if you're making 1,500 Rand contribution with your employer, maybe only 1,300 Rand of that is going into the savings component, which is the retirement portion and the savings portion. That first part comes off first before. So you can't say, well, I contribute 1,500 Rand to retirement. You need to find out, and normally your membership statement would say, this is how much of your 1,500 is actually going to the retirement fund contribution. The balance is there to provide you other benefits.
I've got a question here from Charlene, who wants to know. It says, my retirement annuity matured last year in May, but I'm continuing to pay it as I don't need it. How does the two-pot affect me going forward?
Well, as at the 31st of August doesn't affect you at all, because that will be the value of your fund when it matured, together with the growth on that fund, together with the contributions you've made, and any growth on that. So that would be calculated as at the 31st of August. Let's say that comes to 180,000. That's what goes. We call the vested portion. The two-pot portion is now you're going to make a contribution to your retirement annuity. Let's assume you're contributing 1,800 Rand a month to your retirement annuity. There will be a new section opened up for your retirement annuity, which is the retirement and saving component. That's the two-pot system. But the other part is the vested portion. So it's everything up to the 31st of August. That's why I'm saying you don't need to retire. In other words, if the value of your fund is, say, 800,000 at 31st of August and you do nothing, and 2 years later it gets to R1 million, it will be 800 in the vested portion plus future contributions. You'll still be able to access that 30,000 Rand. You don't have to do it on the 1st of September. You've got time. But be aware, I'm making you very much aware, that if you in a high tax bracket, they will deduct tax from any monies you withdraw.
Khotso, you're on the East Rand. Good morning.
Yes, morning. How are you, Cathy?
Well, thank you, Khotso.
Morning, Khotso.
Brian. Yeah, Brian. I'm afraid because you also appear to be also still wondering on straightforward question. Question number one, Brian, which you need also to answer. But if you don't know, there's no problem. You just tell us you don't know. Tell me who are these Pot A and Pot B? You need to, because here there are billions of money which is going to go to the hands of the white monopoly capital, or say Stellenbosch Mafia if you want. Tell us to say Pot A is this, Pot B maybe is PIC. Question number two, why this move of taking our money out of the pension fund or the PIC? Because to me, it has been having all the securities and it has been highly regarded. Now it is going to somewhere where we don't know. That's why I'm saying, who is Pot A, who is Pot B?
Okay.
Then the third question.
Wait, Khotso.
Let me just answer that.
Yes, I think Khotso, just hang on.
No money is leaving your fund. The money that you've contributed all these years is remaining in the pension fund under the control of the administrators and the trustees of that pension fund. There is no money leaving or going to PIC. All that is happening is within your fund there will be Pot A, which is up to the 31st of August. Pot B and C will be future contributions. Pot B will be the retirement portion, 2/3. Pot C will be the savings. Nothing leaves the fund. There's nothing about white monopoly, got nothing to do with that. It stays in your fund and it's as secure and protected in the funds by the Financial Conduct Authorities Association and the FSB. Okay.
Okay, the last question with me. I just needed to check to say how many percentage, because there will be Pot A and Pot B. Let's say out of, use a simple arithmetic, you say out of 100 Rand, you say this sort of money will go to Pot A, this sort of money will go to Pot B, which most of the people are still in the dark, which I also talk about the issues of transparent, because you said, you kept on saying that all of this, we are going to start on a clean slate. Why the clean slate? Because everything was just going okay without no any problem. Because to tell the truth, of which I know, I doesn't blame you, there was no clear consultation. There was no any consultation yet, right? Thank you.
Look, okay. Khotso, I think don't leave so quickly. Remember.
Oh, okay.
Remember where all of this started, Khotso. It was the unions that brought this issue of workers being able to withdraw from their retirement funds. So it didn't come out of nowhere. The union said workers were hard-pressed and needed to be able to access some of their funds before retirement. And that's how we have now ended up with the two-pot system. Of course, it has evolved from where the conversation initially started to where we are today. The point is, we are here today. Now, there's also the element of having to understand what this two-pot system entails. And I think Brian was explaining earlier around the fact that you will have 2/3, right, that are going towards your vested portion, and then you have 1/3 that is going towards your savings portion. Yes, Brian.
Let me, Khomotso, you raised the point 100 Rand. 66 Rand and 66 cents of that 100 Rand will go to the retirement fund, retirement component. 33 Rand and 33 cents will go into the savings component. It's the same fund. The only difference is it's allowing people, while they're working, to access some of their funds which they could not do before. And as a trade-off, the fact is that the retirement portion, the 2/3, if you resign, you will have to leave that in the fund until you reach retirement. This, by the way, the consultation has been with the pension fund industry, with investment industry, with government going on for 2 years. As a matter of fact, the Minister of Finance wanted this implemented 6 months ago, 1st of March. The companies were not ready. They are ready. So there's no fancy scheme, no money going elsewhere. When I talk about a clean slate, all I mean is you've got the money that you saved up to the 31st of August. Let's say that's 100,000. And if you leave, you can take it, and then you've got your future 100 Rand or whatever the case may be in the second pot. Same fund, same protections.
Okay, here is the last one. Here is the last one. If indeed a person, an employee, has been in serious financial distress, to be honest, Mr. Brian, do you think 30,000, a simple house 30,000, can do anything?
No.
Why do they put a maximum of 30? If you say 10%, why don't you say 10% of the total money you have? You can't say 10% and come back again and say your maximum is 30. If someone is in real trouble, 30. Oh, man, let's stop joking, guys. 30.
Okay. All right,
and on top of the 30, why do you want to tax the same 30? The same 30 you want to tax it again.
Well,
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah.
Financially, doesn't make sense.
I agree. However, previously you could not withdraw from your retirement funds unless you resigned. Now they're giving you some access to funds without you resigning. By the way, initially it was set at 22,500, and in discussions over the last 12 months, it was raised to 30. I agree with you, but if someone's in financial difficulty anyway, and they were planning to resign because they needed to get their pension money, nothing stops them from resigning and withdrawing their pension money. However, they will be taxed on what's called the withdrawal tax table, which only gives 27,500 tax-free, and then it starts to tax at 18, 27 and 36%. So very onerous tax. So yes, why it was set at 30,000, it's not for me to comment. That was the arrangement in terms of all the negotiations. But if someone's in financial difficulty now and they need to raise a few 100,000, they will resign. And if they resign, they're in no worse position now. The only thing they've got now is one further step of giving them some funds. I agree. 30,000 may not be sufficient, but they're not locked in. They're not locked in. They're only locked in with future contributions where 2/3 is locked in.
Okay. All right. Anonymous, you're out in Soshanguve. Good morning.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. I would like to also make an input. I am actually a public servant, and I'm a bit concerned with SARS. The reason why I'm saying that is because, since the talk of the two-pot system, SARS has actually started to penalize people. In my case, somewhere last year, I was told that actually they just went and garnished or put a stop order on my salary. And then when I went to the SARS offices, I was told that I'm actually owing SARS from 2010. My own concern is that they did that without even checking whether I will afford the money that they were garnishing me against. So there are a lot of, especially in the public service, there are a lot of people who have been penalized for petty things like if you don't submit your return, you get penalized. And whilst you are paying, whilst they are garnishing your salary, you can't get a tax clearance. And I'm told that is one of the requirements for you to be able to get money from this two-pot system. So there are a lot of people who are not going to be able to draw the money because they won't get a tax clearance from SARS. But if they do, they are still going to be taxed. After paying that tax, SARS is also going to take some of the money to go into the debt that SARS says they are owing. That is my only concern, and thank you.
All right, Anonymous. Thanks for that. I'm going to take a quick break. Brian, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to him afterwards. We'll also be back with your voice notes.
SA Women Struggles Journal. #Women's Month. Celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women's development, SAFM celebrates the power, resilience and brilliance of women. It's Women's Month and we're honoring the incredible contributions of women in our communities, our workplaces and our homes. Join SAFM in recognizing the achievements, strengths and spirit of women everywhere. Let's uplift and empower each other today and every day. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. Talking Finance with Brian Hirsch, making sense of your finance.
We continue the conversation with Brian Hirsch. We're talking about the two-pot system, Brian.
Yeah, I just seem to be losing my voice for a second. So just give me a second. Okay, so let me explain to you. Your fight is with SARS. If you owe SARS money, then your fight is with SARS. And I've got a situation at the moment. I'm struggling a little with my voice at the moment, I think, Cathy.
Yeah, so sorry about that, Brian. I'm not sure what's going on there. But let me do this while Brian just takes a sip of water. Let me go to Puleng in Bloem because he can still note down the questions and we'll answer in one go. Puleng, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Cathy, and good morning to Brian. This is Puleng from Bloemfontein.
Yes,
Cathy, I actually have two questions. My first question is based on the vested part. The one that is actually said to be the one to be frozen, especially after the 31st of August. Now, what I'm getting from the information that Brian is sharing is that at no point one will ever be in a position to access the funds in the vested pot, only until one reaches the age of 55. That's then they will be able to access the funds in the frozen pot. So what happens then when one actually resigns altogether before the age of 55? That is my first question. So I'm going to go to my second question because I've heard that Brian is experiencing problems with his voice.
All right. He's okay now. He's back on the line, yeah?
Okay, Brian, should I allow for you to respond to my first question?
Carry on.
You can ask the second one.
You can ask the second one.
Okay. My second question is that in a situation where one actually has a retirement annuity with a certain financial institution, and then again has a retirement pension fund with their own employer, then what happens, because I believe both funds fall under this two-pot system, will they be in a position to withdraw from the retirement annuity with another financial institution as well as be in a position to withdraw from their employer?
Oh, Puleng, that's a good question.
Okay, you have caught me out.
Yeah, that's a good question.
You have caught me out. What I will do is when I get back to my office, I will find out. Because I'm going to be away, I will send a note through to you, and you can give the answer to the second question.
Yeah.
The second question, because you're absolutely right. If you have a pension fund and you have a retirement annuity, will you be able to draw the 10% from each? I'm not quite, I don't know. That's the first time being answered that question. I will get an answer for you. And the first question you raised is, yes, you're absolutely right. And retirement doesn't mean 65. Retirement means your retirement when you retire after 55. So if your retirement date is 60, yes, the vested portion you will only be able to access at age 60, together with the retirement portion. And the retirement portion, the savings portion, in other words, 2/3, your question on the 2/3, yes, you can only access it on retirement, whereas previously you could, if you left the employer, that future contributions you could take, now you can't. And that'll also include the savings portions. You'll be able to take that in cash, and you will pay tax on the retirement tables, not the withdrawal tables. The retirement tables are a little bit more advantageous, particularly when it comes to your lump sum, because in a retirement table you can take up to the first 660,000 tax-free, 550,000 where you get that tax-free, and then up to 700 you pay 18%, whereas so you will be able to do that, but you will not be able to draw the future contributions made, and you will have withdrawal rights under the vested portion. Hope that helps you.
Okay. In a situation where one resigns altogether before the age of 55, what happens to the vested pot?
You can take it. Either preserve it or take it in the same as you've always been able to do. Nothing changes. It only changes on that vested 2/3 pot.
Okay. No, I'm
okay.
Sure.
And I will send a message through to Cathy this morning. I'm on my way to meetings. I'll send a message. I'm not quite sure if it's first time I didn't ask that question.
It's
Thank you.
It's a great question.
Great question.
Yeah, it's a really great question. Sure.
So when Khomotso said he hopes I'll be able to answer the question, I was, but you stumped me. There was a program on, it used to be, many people remember, Springbok Radio, Stump the Kus Kids, young kids answering questions, and they'd work together. Well, you stumped this quiz kid.
Mteteli, you're in Boksburg. Good morning.
Good morning, Sister. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Good. Thanks. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Lost my voice for a moment. Got it back.
No.
Got it back.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to find out, because I've got colleagues that I work with that are resigning, so that before this thing happens. So I just needed to find out, so if you resign now, you're getting all your money, but if you resign after the 6th of September, you're not getting anything, or how does it work?
No. If you resign now, or you resign in December and February next year, everything that's accumulated up to the 31st of August, you can take. And you can do with what you like. You can preserve it. You can draw it out and pay the tax. There's nothing that changed. It's only future contributions with effect 1st of September.
Okay, and then when you then dismissed, you did not resign. It happened that you are dismissed.
Same story. Same story on the monies up to the 31st of August. It's available. Monies after the 31st falls within the rules and regulations of the vested and saving portions, namely those two pots.
So meaning that you can be dismissed and you can stay at home. That is after next year, February. You can stay at home.
Anytime.
You've got money that she's waiting for you up until you turn, let's say, 55 or whatever.
No. Only the amount as at the 31st of August you can take. You don't need to resign now because you're worried. The same rules will apply. The only thing that will affect going forward is that 2/3 of a future contribution. So if someone's putting in 2,000, of which 1,333 is going to the retirement portion and 666 is going to the savings portion, the savings portion you'll be able to take. It's the future 1,333s that will have to be preserved.
All right, thanks. And does this change your tax bracket in any way? Because some people are saying, since you're going to be taxed now, it means that you've got more income like than normal. So meaning that your tax bracket is going to be changed. It's going to be more than what currently it is now.
No, your tax, nothing changes from a tax point of view. However, the money anyone withdraws from retirement funds will be taxed at marginal rates. It will be added to what you earn in the year, and they'll calculate what tax was unpaid, if anything, and the calculations will be done. So bear that in mind. And let me just make one last comment. I know we run over the 11. If you've got any questions, it's no point phoning me. Speak to your company. Speak to let the company's pension administrator. I am lecturing to certain companies later in August. They'll call their staff together, and I will address those staff members on what happens with their funds alone.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mteteli, thank you so much. And as Brown was saying, just watch out for the tax issue, because if it so happened that the withdrawal that you're making pushes you into a different bracket, that's when then the issue of tax is going to be even harder to deal with.
Or if you owe the receiver money.
All right, Brian, we're out of time. We are going to have more conversations about it. Ian in Cape Town, I'm so sorry we haven't been able to get to you. It's time for the latest news.
The top stories at 11 o'clock, a fatal domestic violence incident in Mpumalanga and a burglary at the IEC offices in Limpopo. A very good morning to you. A man in Kabokweni, outside White River in Mpumalanga, has shot dead his wife and himself in an alleged domestic feud incident early this morning. Police spokesperson Donald Mhluli says police and emergency services have been dispatched to the scene.
The general was actually disappointed that this incident occurred during Women's Month, and whilst investigators continue to probe, the general emphasized that today's strategy is a stark reminder of the urgent need for awareness, prevention and support for those impacted by such violence.
Staying in Mpumalanga, police say they've launched an investigation into the murder of a 61-year-old former police union leader amid foul play suspicions. The victim, Nkosinari Teledi's body was discovered inside his car in Sundra on the 1st of this month. This after he reportedly left his residence at Norcam Park in Gauteng en route to Standerton. Police spokesperson Donald Mhluli again.
Preliminary investigation so far revealed that the victim's two cell phones, wristwatch as well as his shoes were missing from the scene. Additionally, Mr. Teledi displayed signs of physical trauma, including bruises and evidence of bleeding. What is more interesting to the investigators is that they found that the vehicle was somehow cleaned, and it showed that someone was covering something. The motive, however, is unknown at this stage and will form part of the investigation. No arrests have been made.
In Limpopo, police are investigating a burglary at the Electoral Commission offices in Lebowa Khomu outside Polokwane. They say employees discovered that the offices were broken into when returning to work yesterday. Police spokesperson Malesala Ledwaba says computers, a laptop and election management devices amounting to over 77,000 rand have been stolen.
The police were called to the scene. In the office, 2 computers, 1 laptop, 2 management devices and grocery were stolen during the burglary. A case of business burglary was opened for further investigation. Police are urging anyone who might have any information on the burglary to contact Crime Stop number 08600 111.
EFF leader Julius Malema has called on the Rhodes University name to be changed, saying it bears the name of apartheid oppressors. This during his speech last night at the Makhanda-based university's Leadership Week on the topic of security and good governance. Malema made mention of the controversial name of the tertiary institution, saying cutting ties with the country's racially segregated past is necessary. He suggested that the university be renamed Steve Biko University.
Cecil John Rhodes University, named after the most brutal colonizer. Grahamstown has changed the name to Makhanda. Why can't this university change the name?
And the military in Bangladesh is holding talks with protest leaders a day after the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was forced from power. The army has taken charge of the country and is setting up an interim government, but the student leaders say they will not accept a military-led administration. More from the BBC's Akbar Hussain.
Student leader, they are saying that their voices must be heard, and they gave a proposal that Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus should head the next interim government. And some local media, they are reporting that the Professor Muhammad Yunus has agreed to take the charge. And on the other hand, we have seen that the Professor Muhammad Yunus, he gave an interview to the Indian newspaper where he described that Bangladesh is now a free country, and he said that Bangladesh was like an occupied land during Sheikh Hasina's regime, and there was no freedom.
The top story at 11 o'clock, a man in Kabokweni outside White River in Mpumalanga has shot dead his wife and himself in an alleged domestic feud incident early this morning. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemeli.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 7 after 11 o'clock. Welcome to the third and final hour of the Talking Point. Before we get into our interview looking at the Department of Water and Sanitation, we're going to take you live to the ANC briefing taking place that is just giving an update on its Lekgotla that has been sitting since last week.
That have been made, particularly at a policy level driven by the ANC. We start off with the introduction, as Comrade Maqingwane here was saying, that we need a good working relationship with the police, with the Border Management Authority, which was an institution that was conceptualized here. It went from paper just in 2019. A few months ago, we were sending out a cohort of about 400 border guards. So that shows that the issue of borders is really receiving attention. And again, in this Lekgotla, that particular issue came out quite strongly. Capacitation of the Border Management Authority. We were expecting to have about 11,115 personnel sent through our borders, as well as in the management of our borders. We've only been able to send about 2,566. So we are saying that we need to capacitate the Border Management Authority so that it is able to carry out its functions, working closely with the police and other law enforcement institutions, because you will remember that when it comes to the border fence, you have the defense, you have public works and infrastructure that is responsible for making sure that there are barriers, and also defense to make sure that there are no external threats that come into the country, and the BMA facilitating the movement of people, working with SARS to make sure that customs effectively goods that come into the country are legal. Now we are moving from a perspective that says you can't grow the economy of the country if the country is not secured. If you don't have proper security to secure the country, then you have a problem. If you have 100 million worth of cigarettes coming through Bait Bridge and the BMA is not there to stop that, that means you are losing revenue in terms of your income. So it is very important that we do that. There is also other infrastructure projects that are really supported at policy level, like your one-stop border post. There's going to be an upgrade of the 6 land ports of entry to a one-stop border post that will support the Africa Free Trade Area and also make sure that the ease and movement of goods is easy and we are able to catch all the illegal goods that might be coming into the country. And as we've indicated, part of the recommendations at a policy level in terms of the Vulindlela report, which said these are the expectations from immigration that we want, particularly our permitting unit. We were given 5 process recommendations as well as 3 policy recommendations, which means that a total of 8 in terms of the visa regime changes had to be introduced. Out of those, 6 have already been implemented, which makes it easier for people to come and move into the country, supporting tourism, supporting the introduction of skills. We are only left with 2, which is the expansion of capacity and issues around IT modernization. So that is the work that is being done around the area of immigration. And we're not depending platforms around the issue of people who came into the country in Mpumalanga. And I can tell you, the issue of Judy Zuma is an example of how we capture and make sure that we deliver justice to those who do wrong and assist illegal people to come into the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Njabule. Comrade Parks, as we said, we work together. Comrade Parks will then come in and then we'll take the question thereafter. I think we'll need to. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I don't think I should move it.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. Just a few points focusing on local government and service delivery. Of course, we are talking within the context of the burning platforms. And in many ways, the challenges we confront in local government constitute in themselves a burning platform. So one of the first issues that we're looking at is, in fact, the architecture of local government, having experienced a local government system over 25 years, and whether it's functioning optimally or not. And I think we've identified a number of significant gaps that require intervention. And instead of having ad hoc interventions, we're taking the view that it is important that we re-envision our system of local government and drive that through a process of reviewing the white paper on local government and redesigning our system of local governments and related mechanisms of governing at a local level, including the financial architecture, the mechanisms of financing local government, and related matters. The second is that whilst talking about re-envisioning local government, revising the white paper and legislation that creates and supports local government, there are immediate steps that we need to take that needs to resolve some of what may seem as intractable challenges that we have. Amongst those would be addressing the intergovernmental debt, challenges with regards to infrastructure, and so on. And we are of the view that, in fact, in the next phase of Operation Vulindlela, as pronounced by the President, we need to focus on local government and its issues. And that would include addressing the debilitating intergovernmental debt crisis where municipalities or agencies and utilities at the national government level, national departments or municipalities, it's a spiraling problem that has not reached finality, and we've been responding in piecemeal ways. And we think that it is now important that you have an overarching response that addresses the debt crisis in our local governance system and how that impacts other agencies. So the impact of municipalities not paying water boards, for example, is that these, because they are self-financing, could very easily collapse, as we experienced with the Citibank water board. And some of the water boards are beginning to indicate challenges in terms of their ability to provide reliable bulk water supplies. So that crisis is not, when you look at it, it's about addressing these challenges so that we guarantee and secure availability of services going forward. We think that there should be a particular focus on our metropolitan municipalities and key cities in the country as centers of economic growth and investment. So that should constitute part of the Operation Vulindlela initiatives around local government. And then we need to capitalize and recapitalize critical infrastructure in our municipalities. Comrade Senzo, in his previous capacity at Water and Sanitation, published a report on what is the drop reports. And all the indicators are suggesting that we require significant reinvestment and investment in critical infrastructure. This would include water reservoirs, wastewater treatment plants, and so on. It would include intake points and transformers on the electricity side. So whilst we have achieved significant progress with regards to load shedding, we now all know that, in fact, sometimes our municipalities have their own challenges, and some of them have to do with your intake points, your ability to accept electricity from ESCOM into the municipality. There's a huge intake point that requires significant investments for municipalities to accept those electricity into the municipality. And then it has to do with local transformers and ensuring that those are invested in. So those critical infrastructure points in our municipalities require attention. And we think that we need to have now greater appetite to partner with the private sector, to mobilize public-private partnerships, to have mechanisms of private sector participation in addressing some of the challenges in local government, and to ensure that we mobilize resources across the board, from government to development finance institutions, including local and international financing institutions. So you should be able to go to the DBSA in as much as you should be able to go to the French Development Bank and look at different financing mechanisms, including blended financing mechanisms, to address the challenges that we confront on the bulk side in the municipal infrastructure network. So financing is a particular track of work that we need to focus on in addressing these challenges. And then there are the daily issues of municipal basic service delivery. This is the point at which communities experience reliability of supply. Yes, you have a tap, but the water doesn't always come out. When you drive on a road, you have potholes. You have sewer leakages in different parts of the townships, in towns, and so on. So those most basic service delivery issues. And we're saying that, in fact, we should be bold and make a decision that we're going to look at all the grants and subsidies that go to local government and purpose and repurpose them to address basic service delivery challenges. So it's almost like going on a zero base and saying, yes, there's money that goes to local government. A lot of it goes back to national government at the end of the financial year because of either under expenditure or any other challenges that we experience. Some of it goes to new capital infrastructure, but your services are challenged. So you have water leakages and other problems, but you're building new infrastructure. So we need to begin to balance those things and say, how do we address these challenges? And some of the restrictions are in the regulations that govern these subsidies and grants. So we need to go back to these subsidy and grant regulations and say, can we rebase and rethink about these most basic service delivery issues and how we address them? And then there is what we consider an existential issue, which is about prepaid meters. The prepaid meter issue is a very significant issue because the date of conversion into a new vending system needs to be completed before the 24th of November, 2024. And not all our municipalities are on track to meet the target. Sometimes because communities resist municipalities coming in to change the meter because people are worried that you are dealing with arrears. But you're now creating a burden on and a risk to both municipality and municipalities and communities. Because in essence, if the vending system doesn't work, when you go and buy a token to get your electricity, that token will not work from the 24th of November. So unless these meters have been changed, we're creating a problem for the sale of electricity. And how do municipalities supply electricity? Because the intake of electricity is at the point of the meter. How do municipalities then supply your electricity if the vending system doesn't work? So this is an existential problem because it's going to impact municipalities and communities. The municipality would not be able to on-sell the electricity. Communities would not be able to buy the electricity. And therefore, the system is likely to collapse in many instances. So we do need to work closely with communities to address these problems, but equally take an all-of-government approach to addressing what we believe is an existential issue.
All right, so that is Pakstaw. He's joined by a number of other ANC NEC members as they give this feedback following their back-to-back 6-day lekgotla, reflecting on the outcomes of the elections and also trying to pave a way forward for the party over the next couple of years. We're also expecting to hear from the alliance partners. This is COSATU, the SACP, and the South African National Civic Organization. For now, we're going to take a quick break, and I'm back with the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. It's the first elimination challenge, and to stay in the competition, the bottom 6 contestants must channel their inner Italian by baking a delicious handmade pizza using leftovers from the fridge. Who will survive to bake another day? Find out on the Tastemaster Junior. Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
SA Schools football comes alive on the 9th and 10th of August 2024 at Sarat Park, Wits University for the SA Schools National Championship from 9 a.m. daily. The best under-15 boys and girls representing their province's school teams will battle it out to try and be selected into the under-15 schools national team. Bring your family and camp chairs to support your provincial under-15 team. If you're not in Gauteng, catch the games on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. Yesterday, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Phemi Majodina, highlighted her department's focus over the 24-25 financial year. She also gave an update in terms of where the department is in the provision of clean water. This is for some areas that have particularly come under the national spotlight. They include Hammanskraal and the Vaal sewage plant that, of course, has been contaminated for some time and has needed work done to it. That is the waste water treatment plant. David Mahlobo is the Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation. He joins us on the line. Good morning, Minister Mahlobo. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, thank you very much, Kate, and to all your listeners across the length and breadth of our country.
How would you describe this period that we have been in as a country? Of course, elections done and dusted, and now the formation of a government of national unity, and what ultimately this could mean for South Africans going forward.
The mood, Katie, is very, very positive now, and the response of the ANC led by President to invite everybody for a call to action to work together is a very, very positive development accepted by South Africans, our partners internationally, including the financial markets, and those of us who are assigned by the President to do certain tasks to respond to the issues of growing our economy, ensuring that there are jobs, getting the capacity of the state, and delivering services. We should leave no stone unturned because our people deserve that.
Where do you think the ANC is with its project of renewal?
The ANC, when President is concluding this afternoon, you will have an opportunity to address our nation. And I want us to leave those for the ANC so that the message straight from the horse's mouth, if we are using figuratively. Our president, let's allow him to do that, because I just went out of the commissions now. Let's communicate our final positions. Yeah.
Let's talk about the plans then that the Department of Water and Sanitation has in terms of providing services to the people of this country. Let's begin with the Hammanskraal issue. We know that in the last year we had 30 people dying from cholera in Hammanskraal. To date, we still have dirty water coming out of taps in Hammanskraal. How is this going to change?
Our attitude as a Ministry of Water and Sanitation is that we are going to support local government so that they discharge their responsibility. And support is very important, but they will also have to rise to the question of leadership, because most of the challenges in local government have everything to do about leadership choices, sometimes choices to do nothing about problems. And it's not only here in Gauteng, in Hammanskraal, Ethekwini, and elsewhere, including in rural communities. The issues that wasted time, which are issues that are regrettable, is when different spheres of government they play politics at the expense of our people. But the cooperation of the current administration in Tshwane, you will know that at least the work has begun in earnest around resolving the epicenter, which is the Rooiwal wastewater treatment system that is polluted. They are making progress, and we are expecting them in the next 18 to 24 months to complete that task, so that water that goes to the Apis River, kept in the local dam, and then it goes to the treatment plant in Temba, is fit for use. I know, I even went for campaigning. I could see that certain of the tests there, human excreta was coming out. The only issue that we have said to the municipality working with the tighten your temporary measure of providing water in terms of the tinkering system, which is a problem because it's exploited. There is a black market, there is vandalism, people have been actually charged, and sometimes that thing is not even delivering water. But on our side as National Department, remember we appointed Mahalis Water. They are actually hard at work right now in a treatment plant, which is a package plant. They've already started putting work there. By the end of October, we are expecting them to give the first volumes, which is 25 million liters per person per day, 25 million liters that are going to get into the Temba system. But it does not necessarily mean, Katie, that by the end of October the water will be clean, because the first thing, we must clean that network that goes to Temba. If it is full of sewer, they must be scouring, using chemicals and others. They will start to get water. But as Minister said yesterday, that intervention is not a panacea to resolve the problem. People of Hammanskraal alone, today they need about 80 megaliters, which is 80 million liters per day. By next year, March, April, that intervention by support from the department will give them additional 25, which makes it 50.
We'll continue the conversation with the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, David Mahlobo, in a moment. We're edging towards 11:30. We'll be bringing you your latest news headlines. And, of course, you are listening to The Talking Point.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and a very good morning. With the news headlines, Kemudupi Makhalemele. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has given a stern warning to criminals that police will not hesitate to fire if they shoot at them first. The High Court in Joburg has postponed former President Jacob Zuma's private prosecution case against his successor Cyril Ramaphosa to February next year. And a man in Kabokweni, outside White River in Mpumalanga, has shot dead his wife and himself in an alleged domestic feud incident early this morning. Details of these and other stories at midday.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
You're listening to The Talking Point. We continue the conversation with the Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation, David Mahlobo. So let's then talk about the time frames, Minister Mahlobo, for the people of Hammanskraal. When then, realistically, can they expect water, clean water, to run out of their taps?
As I'm saying, Cathy, in terms of our own support to that municipality of Tshwane, on our side, we can guarantee that 50 megaliters of water that will be provided by the Mahalis Water Board, of which the work has commenced. I've been there on my side, and the minister and ourselves will go there and check. By the end of April next year, that additional 50 megaliters will be there. But when you look at the numbers, Cathy, the water that must come there, which is the demand is 80 megaliters, which is 80 million liters per day that they must receive. We will still have a deficit, Cathy, of, of 30 megaliters. The municipality will continue to provide them with water in terms of that temporary measure, which is water tankering, which has a lot of plethora of challenges, as we have said. And we have directed them to improve the management and the governance of that particular system, especially to eliminate private tankers and insource them themselves inside so that they can have a control, because it does have a financial implication. But in terms of the report of just getting the only system they have of the Temba treatment plant where water comes from the Athis River, from the Rooiwal treatment work, to upgrade that particular wastewater system, they are left around 18 months, because in our own calculation working with DBSA, it required them to take 24 months to complete that. Therefore, to have everybody getting water in the current demand, because the population is growing, they should be in a position by 2026. But remember, Hammanskraal, there are areas that are formalized where the system is there. Then there are areas that are rural where there are traditional leaders. Those are the ones that there are issues of intermittent supply to tankering and boreholes must be further explored.
Let's talk about the situation in the Vaal, and this is with the wastewater treatment plant there. This has been going on for a number of years now. It has gone through the hands of several ministers, but one doesn't get a sense that there has been any significant process when it comes to rehabilitating that treatment plant and getting it fully functional again.
The intervention in the Vaal, which is Mfuleni, where the epicenter was, had a number of challenges, a number of institutions and ministers have dealt with it. In the main, you'll recall, Cathy, there was an issue that the entire infrastructure, the pumps, were not actually pumping. People, they stripped them off. Many pumps, more than 44 pump stations. Some of them, their deep is about 5 or 6 meters underground, and people strip those things off. And you could see the sewer that was running in the street. The pipes were old, and then the treatment plant in Sebokeng never had sufficient capacity to absorb and be able to treat that. You will recall, Katie, that progress has been made in terms of bulk infrastructure intervention. When you go to Sebokeng wastewater treatment works, you will find that it was treating about only 100 megaliters of effluent per day. And that effluent was not even coming even 30%. Later it went to the Vaal River and into people's homes. There is a Module 6 that we completed now. That Module 6 has given them additional 50 megaliters, a number of pump stations, the main one, pump station 2, 8, and 10. They are now actually working. In other words, sewer gets in them. It has been removed in many homes. But areas around Everton, you have areas like your Spray treatment plants and the others that are there. Rainwater is working on them, and there is a continuous unblocking. That municipality called Mfuleni, Cathy, is really dysfunctional. And were to buy them, just even parties just to transport workers, get them trucks so that at least they can be able to do that work. Even during the campaign, I could still see that there are areas where there's still issues of unblocking to be done. To help them now, Rainwater is expediting and concluding the process. But then apart from the sewer problem, there is a water problem. Those communities there, in many extensions, they go for a number of days without water. Now we could see that they will not even be able to pay what they owe. We have created a special purpose vehicle where Rainwater and Mfuleni using a Mezi Aliba, which is their own water entity, they are forming one entity where we bring all the resources in terms of capacity, the balance sheet. Therefore, the council has approved as one of the issues where municipalities must separate their function of being an authority and a provider, and the water service provider that has the capacity to deal with those issues. But we are very confident that that progress that has been made is very substantive. The issue we have to appeal, citizens must work with government. You know the level of vandalism in the Val, people taking over them, doing illegal connections, even the killing of people that has been happening there. But I must be able to say the committee that I used to chair of various stakeholders, including civil society and NGOs, of more than 50 entities, at least most of our projects are no longer being disrupted. Then there's the last point, Kate. You know the Val River is highly polluted. There is hyacinths, then there's issues of lettuce, and this thing starts from Mpumalanga, where I come from. There go Sugalikwa. It comes here to Gauteng, goes to Free State, then the Northern Cape, until it goes to Namibia. Therefore, we are going to be convening all these water users, the premiers of these various provinces, so that we can stop this pollution going into our rivers. Because if we don't, the cost of treatment of water will be very expensive, and the water will not be fit for use.
When we talk about the country more holistically, a lot of emphasis has been made on the fact that South Africa is a water-scarce country alongside the rest of the region, and that our water problems, particularly when it comes to availability, are only going to worsen with the changing climate. What approach then is the department going to be taking in the next financial year to mitigate against that threat of South Africa running out of water?
Yeah, it is divided into two components, that intervention kit. One of the first components is to guarantee that there is water security. Water security is to answer the question where water will come from. In our case, the issues around building more of bulk infrastructure and the dams, especially knowing that the surface water usage is currently at 75%. That's why all your major ticket projects like your Polyhali Dam that must augment the valve system from the Lesotho is already happening, and that's why billions of rands are being spent there. And it was delayed, Kate, you remember, for probably 9 years. And at the same time, you have a province like KwaZulu-Natal that doesn't have guarantee for water that impacts on a 5 district. That's why getting water from Umkomazi system, the lower and upper Umkomazi, already in progress. You look at the Western Cape, farmers are complaining they don't have water there. That's why we are bringing back the Klein Williams Dam. There are many of them I would not be able to capture them because of time. The other issue to say where will we get water, keeping is the issue that South Africa, there is a lot of wastewater we produce, either through the effluent that you find in our river system from the wastewater treatment plants in municipalities. Our attitude is to say, let's recycle that water. It can't just be a water that is actually being sent back to the dam, sometimes highly polluted. Recycling is one of the mechanisms where water can be treated to a standard of an effluent where for domestic purposes like me and you, we can be able to say that a water that comes from a sewer plant is safe to drink and is meeting the SAN standard of 241. And it's not a new thing, Cathy, this thing of recycling. We just want to increase the quantum, the number. That thing that we're discussing in, what is this place, Amanskrali, earlier on. Remember the water that comes from the treatment works in Temba is a wastewater because it comes from Roy Valley, it goes to a river, Abyss, then a dam called Gokran. We want to do it more in terms of that. We also want to bring water, Cathy, in terms of acid mine drainage. You know, there are many mines here in the Witwatersrand, in Mpumalanga and elsewhere. A lot of water, for an example, in Mpumalanga around Witbank, underground, there's about 10 times the volume of Witbank Dam, is polluted, high sulfates and other heavy metals in water. If you treat it, and mines are already treating it, Cathy, then you'll be able to get more water in terms of reuse and then producing issues of energy and other things. Then when it rains, during good rains, Cathy, we wanted to use groundwater. And then in other words, recharging of groundwater and putting some engineering to take the water that is flowing, put it underground, which is a recharging of the aquifer artificial. Those are the mechanisms. But then the second part is the management of water provision, Cathy. So that we don't run out of water. Municipalities, the drop reports have indicated worse inefficiencies. You know, a country that claims that we have 90% access to water infrastructure, but people go for days, for weeks, for months without water. At the center is that most of our water in our country is lost. When it gets lost, that water, every drop that is being wasted, someone is looking for that drop. But it also has a financial implication because if you waste it, you can't bill it. When you can't bill it, you can't have a revenue, but the citizen is very end. Therefore, addressing non-revenue water and non-accounted water, which average in our country is running at 47%,
okay,
is a major issue that we must address. The last component, Kate, is two. Citizens, they can't behave and continue to behave as if we're a country that has plenty of water. Our consumption level of liters per person per day is astronomical, beyond the world average. That's why yesterday we spoke about 218, which is our country's average. Here in Gauteng, you and me, we stay here, is around 298, but on average in the world is 173. Our water usage as individuals, whether our appliances at home, how we use water for gardening, the taps, the bathrooms, everything, it has to change. And in Cape Town, Katie, you will know, when we're faced with crisis, our people were able to actually respond. The Nelson Mandela Bay is an example. Even here in Gauteng, we can be able to do that. Lastly, we must pay for services. Municipalities, firstly, the money we pay for water must be taken back to water to revive the infrastructure so that O&M is being done. But we can't continue not to pay for water services where even now we sit. The main instrument in our hand, which is water boards, that are very stable and strong, they are being threatened that they will not be able to provide water, even to pay for their employees to buy chemicals, because nobody is paying for water, especially municipalities, as we are running around 25 billion rand that is owed to our water board.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this morning. That is the Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation, David Mohlahlana. Here are a couple of voice notes that you have sent through on this issue.
Morning, Cathy, SK. You see, my only problem with these ministers, all of them, whenever they get a platform to talk, they speak as if these problems are new. I mean, they've been in government for, 30 years now? And all of them is like, we are going to. Even next year, they'll be saying the same thing. They're not really presenting a concrete plan as to, we've started with this project. This project is 50% or 60% in completion. Even the new project that they've started, they've not maintained them, and they've just collapsed. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's bad for us.
Morning, Katie. As long as the minister they are not talking about elimination of water tankers. There will be no progress, because the very same water tankers belongs to the members of the ANC. As long as they don't fix the pumps and stuff like that, they're saying nothing. Because the ANC members are the ones who are benefiting from those water tankers. Thank you very much. Tabo from Soweto.
All right, unfortunately, that's where we leave it for this particular conversation on the show today. We're back with you again tomorrow between 9 o'clock and midday. Of course, keep an eye on what is happening on the East Rand this morning. I see residents, among them hundreds of school children, setting alight Mboro's church out in Katlehong. It's literally going up in flames this morning. So that's certainly going to be one of the stories to continue watching throughout the day. It's following what happened yesterday at Matsidiso Primary School, which he stormed with two other individuals wielding pangas, AK-47 rifles, and removing two learners from the school, which are the subject of a custody dispute.
When Freddie, a troubled woman, is nearly assaulted outside a nightclub, the toilet attendant steps in to help. Baba, a former child soldier, acts with swift, unstoppable brutality. She's entranced. The pair form an instant, intoxicating connection. Something dark within both of them quickly emerges. Soon, they set about exacting revenge on people from Freddie's past. Baba's skill for violence and Freddie's tinge of psychopathy prove a lethal combination. But they are not the only ones on the hunt. We hunt together, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 24th of July. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Witness the global battle of great athletes from South Africa and from all over the world in the Olympic Games Paris 2024. From the heart-pounding races on the track to the graceful routines on the gymnastics floor, each event promises to deliver moments of sheer brilliance and sporting excellence. Live the intense rivalries, inspiring comebacks, and record-breaking performances right here across all SABC TV channels, SABC radio stations, on the move with SABC Plus, or online on sabcsport.com. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. The Olympic Games Paris 2024. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of The Door, an addict's journey, read by Samson Khumalo.
I took my seat. There was utter silence as I had been brutally honest. And even though it was going to be a financial upheaval to maintain a home and be away for more than the expected and budgeted time allocated, I had no choice. God would have to provide, and I handed over everything to Him. My life was in His hands. I kept my mouth shut for the duration of the group, as addict after addict commented on my stance, which for the first time I had totally, in my heart of hearts, surrendered to the process. Immediately following group, I was approached by Oliver, one of the senior counselors. He had been appointed to be my counselor and wanted to have a session that afternoon. I welcomed the news, even though I was not close to him, nor did we share counseling sessions together before, save for the lectures he presented in the big groups. It was late afternoon, and we sat under the tree, and he asked me how I felt. The wrong answer to give in rehab is, I'm fine. This was tantamount to, I am angry and please leave me alone. Truth be told, I was not angry. He was a good listener, and he asked something unusual of me. Please tell me about you and your upbringing. Well, I thought, what is there to tell save all that I had written on my life story? It was not part of my life story, but I'm sure he had indeed found out about it from other counselors. Or perhaps I was just overthinking it. He seemed sincere and somehow knew how to get to people. I never let anyone get to me. I was feeling a little emotional and teary at the same time. What I had just experienced in group came heavy on me, and I broke down and cried in front of another man. A white man, for that matter. It came like a ton of bricks, like I had carried a burden, and this burden of trying to prove and defend was once again offloaded. Tell me about your brothers and your dad. Who is Mr. Mariri? Were you guys closed? My goodness. Now I was at a loss for more words as I reflected deeply on what I had been asked. Is there a catch to this question? Is it a sincere and genuine ask, or there is some ulterior motive? Well, what would that be? I doubt if there is some sinister agenda to this question. For some reason, the picture of my late dad came flashing on mind. I straight away told him that I was angry at my father. Angry, he exclaimed. Why? I paused for a couple of seconds as it all came back. Well, my dad had passed a couple of years earlier, and my relationship with him was well and good. I honored and respected him like a child should. Since I was the last born of 7 children, I was naturally spoiled by my dad with the little he had. I considered myself close to him. To me, he meant the world. We did not have much to live on, but the love that surrounded my family was incredible. My siblings and I were very close, and even they knew that I was my dad's favorite. Naturally, as I grew older, even though I was separated at some stage, I was still close to him, and our bond even grew closer upon my return from the USA. I reconnected with him after 12 years, almost exactly from where we left off. I thank God of heaven for the bond I had. Now, when I was sitting on the chair and looking at Oliver straight in his blue eyes, I told him with a grit of my teeth that I was angry at the old man. Unfortunately, he had passed on. I had not expressed the reason for my anger and the reason why I felt somewhat cheated by him. My dad was my world to me. I never had the guts to confront him about anything relating to any matter whatsoever. A father and son relationship should be characterized by openness and transparency. But I grew up in an era where you don't question authority. You never confront your elders. I must have been maybe 8 years old and was always by his side wherever he went, except when he went to work. When he went drinking with his buddies, I tagged along and would hang out with his friends as they drank their sorrows away. I mean, who would not drink under a heavy machinery of apartheid that separated people according to their race? Blacks got the bad end of the stick, and most passed the time with booze and parties, and I went along with my dad. I could see the misery even at that age, and listening to their chats, they always revolved around women and booze. It did not matter that you were married or not. This was the township lingo at shebeens and bars, and this is how they de-stressed from the oppressive laws of the land. One late afternoon, my dad and I were coming from one of these shebeens. Quite a large number of the population did not have cars, so we walked most of the time. There was a certain vibe that was just too indescribable that could only be found in the township. Late in the afternoon, you would meet different men, young and old, stumbling home, some pissed and some not so drunk as they found their way home. Some singing their lungs out, lashing out at high-pitched voice hymns that reminded them about the pains of growing up poor in the hood. My dad would not drink to a point of not being able to handle himself. He drank moderately. As we were walking, the unthinkable happened. We were stopped by the apartheid police force, who at the time could stop you randomly to check on your papers, making sure that you comply with the law. We could not make the grievous mistake of traveling without identity papers. I was young and did not need one, and was in the company of an adult who happened to be my father that I looked up to. For no apparent reason and without any provocation whatsoever, they started beating my father up while I watched helplessly, screaming. I could not understand. They were young white police officers who just decided that day that they were going to beat a scuffer, and unfortunately it happened to be my dad. They took turns slapping him and punching him, and he was begging sincerely for mercy as he took one slap after another one. I cried so much that I had no more tears to shed. Only anger and hatred towards anything white that roamed the streets of South Africa, especially in uniform. I watched my dad in the hands of 4 young white policemen being beaten and could not even defend himself. I'm sure he was also afraid for me. It was getting darker and no one came to our rescue. People were just too intimidated and scared to do anything about it. I was angry and furious and bitter, and my mind was filled with hatred beyond human comprehension. They were all laughing and having fun at the expense of my father. Little did they know that they were inflicting emotional and psychological pain that would last for decades. I wished I had a gun to mow all of them down. When the beating finally stopped, I rushed to my dad, who was bleeding. He sustained injuries that, to a little child like me at the time, were horrific. Even though he claimed that it could have been worse, that he was feeling fine. We stumbled across to one of the houses on our way home, and he wanted to wash his face before we got home. I was teary and feeling sorry for my dad, and equally angry that 4 people ambushed my dad, knowing that he would not fight back. And for what? Simply because his skin was dark, and this gave them the license to do as they pleased. Poor Counselor turned red as I narrated the story to him. My dad finally found a place to wash his face, offered by some friendly neighbors. One thing for sure, the community would not defend you when it came to any of us being mishandled by the cops, who went around with impunity doing everything and anything they wanted. You knew the best thing was to look away. After thoroughly washing his face and wiping away all the evidence of the beating, he knelt down to my level and, somewhat in a serious tone, pointed his finger at me, instructed me to hold this matter in confidence. We were not to disclose this matter to anyone, not my mother nor my siblings. He immediately instructed me to go wash my face and told me that men should not shed a tear no matter what happened. I was confused, and I loved my dad and respected his wishes. He told this matter is a man's matter and I'm to say nothing. He made me swear I equally must not show any sign that we had experienced anything this bad. I held his secret deep down, deep within my heart of hearts until the day he died. I had never told a soul. I learned to never be emotional about anything or expressive about anything to tell the secrets between men. What goes on between ourselves remains in the confines of men. I learned that men don't cry. It's a sure sign of weakness, and weaknesses will not be tolerated. If you run into trouble and you can't handle your trouble, you don't run like a sissy to report anything. You take it like a man and never engage in frivolous complaints that are meaningless, especially to women. It held me hostage that day, and I was psychologically scared as a child from that day on, and never would I be the same again. The incident changed my perspective as a child, and I became introverted. All the externality was to show everyone around me that I was good and proper and needed nothing from them. I thought many times about confronting him about this incident and never got the guts to engage him. He most probably was doing it for his family and wanted just to do good. What good that would have done, I don't know. We are his family and we loved him to bits. For some reason, even though it was not his fault that we encountered those racist, subhuman beings that were the scum of the earth, I was not angry at that. I think when I reflect on it, the thing that got to me was the fact that he asked me to keep a secret.
That was another episode of The Door, an Addict's Journey, written by Abner Mariri. The book is available on www.abner.africa. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, Read by Samson Kumalo, technical production by Nanda Koza.
O'clock on Tuesday, the 6th of August 2024. Very warm welcome to Update at Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up on today's show,
we need to not to drop the ball. Let's just make sure that security at our schools is at high level.
Well, news coming through. South African pastor Paseka Mboro Motsoeneng's church is being torched by pupils as we speak, and
5 AK-47s were found there. AK-47s. Now, this is a very high caliber weapon.
And Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has applauded police officers for intercepting a crime ring in Khayelitsha last night where 8 suspects were shot and killed. Coming up in sport,
Springbok squad's been announced to take on the Wallabies. I'll bring you the latest from Paris. And we'll come up with new names for some of the sports that I think are missing an opportunity.
I can't wait. John Chirico with those details in the second half of the show. Please share your views with us. 41391 is the SMS line number, charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X or Facebook at SABC News _radio or using the hashtag Update at Noon. Alternatively, you can send us a voice note on 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Tuesday edition of Update at Noon. First, though, let's bring you up to speed with the latest news. Here's Mudupi Makhalimele.
Thank you very much, SK. The top stories at midday. Police send a stern warning to criminals, and Zuma's private prosecution case is postponed. A very good afternoon. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has warned that police will not hesitate to shoot back if fired upon by criminals. He was speaking during a media briefing of the ANC's Peace and Stability Subcommittee of the ANC NEC Lekgotla in Boksburg, Joburg. Mchunu also decried those who say that police are trigger-happy when they kill criminals who shoot at the police.
I read a newspaper, there was a phrase that was used talking about trigger-happy police. They don't talk about trigger-happy criminals. It's unfair, it is factually wrong, but now we want to send a warning out there that gangs or individuals, if you point a gun and indeed you shoot at police, you must not expect that police are not going to respond to you on two fronts. One, they need to defend themselves. The police are human beings. They are fathers and mothers of their children. The second front, they need to survive so that they defend the community against another criminal tomorrow.
The High Court in Joburg has postponed former President Jacob Zuma's private prosecution case against his successor Cyril Ramaphosa to February next year. This to allow the appeal process before the Constitutional Court to be concluded. Zuma, however, is still supposed to appear before the court in his capacity as the private prosecutor to ensure that his matter remains on the court roll. Judge Dario Dosio handed down the order.
As per the draft order, dated the 6th of August 2024, it is hereby ordered, having heard counsel for the private prosecutor, the criminal proceedings are hereby postponed to the 6th of February 2025. And secondly, the private prosecutor shall at that stage appraise the court regarding any developments in the matter.
4 suspects have been arrested in connection with a violent incident at Matsiliso Primary in Katlehong on the east of Joburg. A video circulating on social media shows that 3 men threatening the livelihoods of teachers and learners at the school. One of the men is well-known South African pastor Paseka Mboro Motsoeneng, who is seen wielding a panga, and another man is seen with an assault rifle on the school premises. The incident yesterday is believed to be related to a conflict between 2 families over the custody of learners enrolled at that school. A man in Kabokweni, outside White River in Mpumalanga, has shot dead his wife and himself in an alleged domestic feud incident early this morning. Police spokesperson Donald Mdluli says police and emergency services have been dispatched to the scene.
The general was actually disappointed that this incident occurred during Women's Month, and whilst investigators continue to probe, the general emphasized that today's strategy is a stark reminder of the urgent need for awareness, prevention and support for those impacted by such violence.
And EFF leader Julius Malema has called on the Rhodes University name to be changed, saying it bears the name of apartheid oppressors. This during his speech last night at the Makhanda-based university's Leadership Week on the topic of security and good governance. Malema made mention of the varsity's controversial name, saying cutting ties with the country's racially segregated past is necessary. He suggested that the institution be renamed Steve Biko University.
Cecil John Rhodes University, named after the most brutal colonizer. Grahamstown has changed the name to Makhanda. Why can't this university change the name?
The top story at midday, Police Minister Senzo Mkhunu has warned that police will not hesitate to shoot back if fired upon by criminals. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
A very good afternoon, everybody. At 6 minutes after 12. Thanks so much for being with us here on Update at Noon. And Mudupi will be back with your news headlines at the bottom of the hour. So quite a busy last few minutes leading up to the show as we follow up on a story that came through late yesterday after a video started circulating on social media showing a group of men, about 3 of them, going into a school and forcefully removing 2 children from the school premises, and there were weapons that were being brandished. And as you heard in the news, one of the men turns out to be a well-known pastor, Paseka Mboro Mutsweneng, and this went viral and many people unhappy about what they saw there. So what we understand at the moment is that there has since been some retaliation from the community in which this incident took place on Gauteng's East Rand, and we understand that there may be a facility, could be a church that is currently on fire. So we are sending our reporters, hopefully they're there already, just to bring us the latest from the scene there. So that's a developing story at this time. Also keeping an eye on what's happening in Cape Town, where 8 alleged cash-in-transit robbers were killed by police, and 5 other suspects were arrested in Town 2 in Khayelitsha. So we'll follow up on that, but also look into the matter of weapons, because the police spokesperson in the province said that 7 AK-47 rifles, 2 R5 rifles and 1 R4 rifle, as well as a dash prod rifle, 2 pistols and 3 explosive charges were found in the possession of the suspects. And we are going to just try and have a conversation to find out what is the state of, the weapons doing the rounds in our communities. Where do these weapons come from? Where do people get these weapons? How are they able to lay their hands on some of these weapons that we see very often, not just in these shootouts with police when the suspects are apprehended or when these are recovered, but also sometimes on videos doing the rounds. So we're just going to speak to someone, an analyst, to talk to us about that and tell us more about what's happening there. And then we focus on what's happening on farms, and as we understand, as per a report that's being released today, 80% of individuals within agrarian households are actually poor and vulnerable, and the average woman-headed household can only afford to spend 673 Rand per month on food. And that, of course, is well below South Africa's food poverty line per person, which is currently pegged at 760 Rand per month. And that was actually off as of 2023. So we zoom into this as today is also Farm Workers Appreciation Day, and it is Women's Month. So we'll just try and shine a spotlight on there, and we'll bring you the latest from that report. And some of the other stories that we are focusing on, court stories especially, and also, again, City of Johannesburg, which is, of course, billed as Africa's richest city because of its concentration of millionaires and businesses. The city tells us that it needs 221 billion rand. That is to catch up on maintenance and overdue upgrades across its collapsing road, power and water networks. So many questions to be asked here. We did ask for an interview with the mayor yesterday about a separate matter. We were told he's in back-to-back meetings. So today we're approaching the city again, be it the mayor, city manager, anyone, and see if they will speak to us about what is going on in the city of Johannesburg. Because you will remember the council recently imposed above inflation increases for utilities and rates. And they also forced through that 2.5 billion rand loan from the French Development Agency. So quite a lot going on in the city of Johannesburg. Not a pretty picture as it seems at the moment. But we'll see if anyone from the city will at some point speak to us.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Now we start in the East Rand, where a church believed to belong to Pastor Paseka Mboro Motsweneng in Katlehong has been vandalized, set alight, and is currently in flames. And this follows a violent altercation which is circulating on social media. And that circulation started yesterday. And on it, you can see Pastor Mboro, as he's captured on video, wielding a panga, while another man, believed to be his bodyguard, was carrying an assault rifle, and all this on the premises of a local primary school. Now, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says that at least 4 people have been arrested in relation to this incident.
The incident yesterday in a primary school in Katlehong, it's something that we condemn. When a community leader or a citizen carries what appears to be firearms and a bush knife, go to an institution like education for whatever reason, brandish such things like a panga, and cause commotion because that causes anxiety among children and among parents of other children. We condemn that, and we know that police are dealing with it. They've arrested 4 people. And we are hoping that more arrests will come as it becomes necessary. So that matter is being dealt with.
And that was Police Minister Senzo Mchunu briefing the media a short while ago. And we are, of course, keeping an eye on these developments in the story. Our reporter Calvin Dludla is on his way to the scene, as I had indicated. As soon as he's there, we'll catch up with him to tell us what the latest is in Katlehong. But we have received information. We've received videos on which we can see that the building has been set alight. It is up in flames. So as soon as our reporter reaches there, we will let you know more. Meanwhile, the Gauteng Education Department has condemned the incident at the Matsidiso Primary School. The province's spokesperson, Steve Mabona, elaborates on that.
We opened a case, through the principal and the SGP last night, and we are, happy that the police are busy, processing that case for us, and we are concerned that the children that were taken away from the school, they are now at home. We understand that their mother passed away around April. So they were taken care of by a guardian in the form of a grandmother. So we just don't know why is now the paternal side want to take the children away from the grandmother. Through the Department of Social Development, we will be trying to, mitigate and assist the families, because it's a feud. It's a custody feud now, so which need to be resolved, because children must be at school and they need to be, supported in terms of the trauma that they experienced, seeing pangas being wielded like that, and them being pulled away, from that school. So it's quite concerning, and we'll work with all our stakeholders to make sure that they are supported, because we have started with the process of counseling at school, all our children. Our employees will start with that program tomorrow, and we will monitor the situation.
Safety at school, Steve, has been a problem, and for this particular incident just highlights that again. The fact that these men were able to gain access to the premises carrying those dangerous weapons is, of course, again, of great concern to all and sundry, because it's not just about this school, it's about school safety generally.
No, what we did was to identify the high-risk areas, and we identified over 150 schools where we felt that this need to be secured because of the number of cases that we were experiencing previously at those schools. We appointed a security guard, which is well armed. We gave them surveillance cameras, those that are advanced, face recognition, because we felt that we need to assist the schools. So some schools, they are not at that classification, and you will find there only a patroller, which the patroller must assist to be our eyes and ear, that in the event of anything, they interact with the police. Police must then, assist us, because we also have the wardens, amapanyaza, who will also patrol in the schooling environment, because, as it were, we will not afford to have armed security in all our schools, over 2,000 of them. We will not afford it. So hence we classify them and say, let's classify these ones where there's no crime that is at a high level, then we manage them in this way. So probably we need to tighten up our relationship with community safety and the police, to say, in the event of anything, they should be quick to respond, because that incident happened for quite some time while,
That was exactly my thought as well, because it went on for a while and there was no response. As you spoke about the patroller perhaps being in communication with law enforcement that could be nearby, the amapanyaza or whoever it may be, community safety patrollers, nobody responded.
Yeah, that's something that we need to raise with community safety and the police, to say we need to not to drop the ball. Let's just make sure that security at our schools is at high level, and we'll continue with them. But the school in question is not a high-risk school, as it were. You saw, it's a family that is a feud at home. Then they came to the school and they did all that we saw on the video footage, which is unacceptable.
I also received yesterday, and we will follow up on that, another disturbing video from a parent of a child who was beaten up, the whole issue of bullying. And what she was saying to me, Steve, was that the school, when she went to report this to the school, said they couldn't do anything because it was not on the school premises, but it was after school, outside of school. I'm not sure if you are aware of that particular incident, but the issue of bullying we've been dealing with for a long, long time, and it seems as though, it is ongoing in certain instances. What is the parents' and the child's recourse in this matter?
No, whether the incident occurred outside the school environment doesn't matter, as long as those children belong to the same school. We need to understand and investigate, and the SGB must then conduct a disciplinary process if it's children that are involved, because the code of conduct is on how children must conduct themselves, and if they are from the same school, there's no justification that you can't take action because whatever happened outside the school environment. These children go together to tours, excursions and all that. So what if something happened there we can't say it didn't happen in the school. Some, they throw their own parties at home. As long as they belong to one school, if something happened there, we can't say it happened, at home. We must take action because they belong to the same school, because we would have known them, they're in our records.
And that was Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona. He was here at the SABC earlier and we managed to squeeze in that interview with him. And just another reminder, our reporter Calvin Dludla is on his way to Katlehong, and this is a developing story where we understand that a church belonging to Pastor Paseka Mboro Motsweneng in Katlehong has been vandalized and has been set alight. So as soon as our reporter reaches there, we'll touch base with him.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Well, it's 20 minutes after 12. And moving on to another story. Today is a Farm Workers Appreciation Day. And very often, these are people that almost live on the periphery, in the shadows almost, until something horrific happens and we shine a spotlight on their plight. Well, speaking of their plight, 80% of individuals within agrarian households in South Africa are said to be poor and vulnerable. And this according to a study by Chincha Amakaya, and it's conducted by the Human Sciences Research Council, the HSRC. Now, these people are living in different rural areas around the country and in different environments such as commercial farms, communal areas of the former homelands, and they engage in agricultural production for their own consumption or to sell. Now, this poverty metric is worse for female-headed households, and it has been exacerbated by the cost of living increases, climate crisis, and of course the COVID-19 pandemic. But for more on this matter, we join on the line now by lead researcher of the study, Dr. Peter Jacobs. Dr. Jacobs, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Update at Noon. Good afternoon, Dr. Jacobs.
Yes, Peter Jacobs speaking, yeah.
Hi, you're speaking to Sakina. We're on air on SAFM, so thanks so much for speaking to us.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
Dr. Jacobs, about the study that was commissioned, let's just start by what prompted this particular study and what was the scope thereof.
Oh, the recent study, which is called The Livelihoods of Agrarian Households, was commissioned by Chincha Amakaya, which is basically some NGO alliance of rural social movements. And they asked the HSRC to conduct the study in 2023. And we have just completed the study a few months ago. And we, after the analysis, we released the results today about the status of agrarian households, which would be farm workers, small farmers, resource-poor farmers, farm dwellers, and other people living in rural areas in South Africa. So that's basically what the study was all about, to find out about their living conditions, what they're doing, and how they're living. And today's launch of the report focused on a specific theme linked to Women's Month and the fact that we are going to have Women's Day on Friday, commemorate that, and the Chincha Amakaya collective felt that they want to partner with the HSRC today to reflect on the significance of the report in the context of Women's Month.
Dr. Jacobs, with regard to the scope of the study, how far and how wide did you go for this research?
Oh, the Chincha Amakaya didn't have enough resources, so we focused on 12 districts spread out across all the provinces in South Africa. So it's not a study that can be compared to the standard big census or national surveys in South Africa, but it was a very focused study in these 12 districts across the country. So the districts are predominantly in what we call deep rural areas in the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Western Cape, and so on. And that's the extent of the study. It had 3 or 4 arms to it. The one arm of the study was a survey. Then another big arm of the study was a set of interviews with government departments and officials nationally and provincially and other organizations. Another arm of the study was to contextualize the work in kind of the more kind of global south. And the final arm of the study was to look at the existing big surveys, such as the census, the General Household Survey, and the Labour Force Survey. And what we discovered about those big surveys that we conducted in South Africa, they actually just completely marginalizing this particular sector. And there are lots of reasons we think that's happening, but there was a great need felt for a deeper investigation into this kind of marginalized sector of the South African population.
And I'm actually glad that you did this, because it gives us a picture into an area that otherwise we probably would not see. So what is happening in our farmlands, Dr. Jacobs? What are some of these findings about where people live and how they live?
Well, we focused specifically on 3 groups of people in these areas, and that was part of the brief that we received from Chincha Makaya last year. So the first group that we focused on is, we refer to them as resource-poor small farmers. These are people who basically eke out a living by farming on a small plot of land. And then we looked at what we call farm workers. They're working on farms, they're producing the food, but they often just excluded. And then we looked at a group of people who they refer to as farm dwellers. These are people who often live on farms, they don't work on farms, but they don't have anywhere else to live. And so these 3 groups of people are highly vulnerable to a whole series of different areas that we looked at in this particular report. The first and most important one is the vulnerability to land insecurity. They don't have land, they can't utilize land for their own food production. And another vulnerability that came up is the vulnerability that we focused on quite heavily today, is the vulnerability on securing enough food. In fact, this is being the big concern of the study, or raised in the study, which is often referred to as the food paradox. What is the food paradox? The food paradox is basically those who produce the food don't have anything to eat. And this is a serious indictment to our society, and the research unearthed this very, very important element that has been neglected for such a long time. It's also followed up on the previous rounds of a similar study conducted by Chincha Makaya, the 2011-2012 survey. And the take-home message, when we compare the results across the 2 surveys, really point to a very marked, a very sharp deterioration in the living conditions and well-being of these 3 categories of agrarian households, as we refer to them as. And so this is a real worrying sign, and it raises really big questions in the aftermath of South Africa's recent elections on what to do with this huge section of the population, which is between, I think, a third and about 40% of South African population that has been completely marginalized and excluded.
So previously, one could feign ignorance around this matter, but now that you have come up with the study and the findings that go with it, what do you intend doing with this research? I know this research was commissioned by Chincha Makaya, but how is this going to assist the situation for those living on farmlands?
Well, Chincha Makaya wanted the research to be conducted to figure out what happened since their 2011-2012 report. They also wanted the research to be conducted to close the gaps, given what we have in the existing reports where this is not, being picked up by bigger surveys. And then finally, they wanted this research to be conducted to inform the activism. Actually, I just walked out of the discussion now, and this is still going on. There's a heated discussion on the findings happening at the moment at the launch event, where they are discussing on what's next, what is to be done. And it is the last point, I think, that is attracting a lot of attention at the moment, because people are looking at 2 areas of work. The first one is placing the grievances of these communities on the agenda based on evidence. So there's now an evidence-based policy activism almost that's being instigated by this. And then secondly is to strengthen the social mobilization that Chincha Makaya is involved in. Chincha Makaya is planning to engage into what they refer to as a bigger gender summit. And then secondly is to put forward a lot of these recommendations to government departments, both locally, provincially, and nationally, to help them jointly with the government departments investigate the kinds of solutions that will be in the interest of these marginalized communities.
Dr. Peter Jacobs, thanks so much for at least giving us a glimpse into that report and its findings. Dr. Peter Jacobs is strategic lead in the Equitable Education and Economies Research Division at the Human Science Research Council, that's the HSRC, and also the principal investigator of this study. And there are just some things that you can't unhear. The food paradox, how those who actually produce our food don't have food. So if you have the time, go and take a look at that study. With that, it's time for the latest news headlines with Mudupi Makhalimele.
Thank you very much, SK, and a very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has condemned the violent incident at Matsiliso Primary in Katlehong, east of Joburg yesterday, where 3 men threatened the lives of teachers and learners. The High Court in Joburg has postponed former President Jacob Zuma's private prosecution case against his successor Cyril Ramaphosa to February next year. And stock markets in Japan have bounced back from some of the heavy losses they suffered yesterday. Details of these and other stories coming up 1 o'clock.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
The rand is trading at 18 rand 55 cents to the US dollar, 23 rand 59 to the pound sterling, and 20 rand 25 to the euro. The euro currently trading at $1.09 and the dollar's at 145 yen 43. In Brazil, $1 US is trading at 5 real 72, Russia at 85 rubles 5, in India at 83 rupees 81, and in China, $1 US is changing hands at 7 yuan 13. Markets in Asia ended in mixed terrain today. Hong Kong's Hang Seng dropped 0.3%, mainland China Shanghai Index added 0.2%. Japan's Nikkei surged by 10.2%, while India's markets were lower at the close of trade. The JSE, that's extended losses at midday. The all-share index lost 0.4% and is currently at 79,226. The Industrials 25 index off 0.6%. Financials has declined by 0.1%. Top 10 Resources index down 0.8%, and the Precious Metals and Mining index 1.2% weaker. On the capital market, the yield on the R186 government bond is at 8.32% and the yield on the R2030 at 9.37%. European markets have extended gains at this hour. Britain's FTSE 100 currently flat. Germany's DAX has added, or is slightly weaker rather. The CAC 40 in France has declined by 0.5%. Looking at commodities, gold trading at $2,408 per fine ounce. Platinum's at $918 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $76.48 a barrel.
This is SAFM Sport with John Gericka.
So we had the most fun this morning.
We are experts at bouldering.
Yes.
We know everything about bouldering.
And we know the strategies, how you should climb, where you should hold, where you should grip, which leg should move where. Yeah. We know everything.
If you ever see a photograph of us, don't confuse what we look like to our expert knowledge of bouldering.
Yes.
All right, first, box news. We're going to talk Olympics in a minute, and I'm going to help the Olympic Games a little bit. Box news first, Sacha Feinberg, Ngomazulu, and Ulrich Loh will make their first test starts for South Africa. They're up against the Wallabies in Brisbane on Saturday. The match 23 features only 3 changes from the group that faced the Irish. Loh at number 9, 2-time Rugby World Cup winning scrum half Cobus Rana comes in. Replacement to utility forward Ben Jason Dixon as well. Experienced fly-off Andre Pollard provides cover off the bench, along with Grant Williams, who serves as backup at scrum half and wing. It's in a 6-2 split in favour of the forwards. The bench, powerful bomb squad with Malcolm Marx, Gerard Steenkamp and Vincent Koch coming in alongside Dixon, Marco van Staden and Quagga Smith. Coach Rassie Erasmus explains it's the start of a nod to the future for the Boks.
We can't look too far ahead and we'll forget the present. but we also can't just look at the present. And I think in the squad overall, you can see that I think there's about 9 guys in the squad. I counted today. That probably wasn't regulars prior to the World Cup last year, which we're rotating in and out. And I wouldn't say it's change of the guard. It's giving guys opportunity, whilst guys like Andre and Mani and those guys and Jordan who got an opportunity, whilst those guys are help nurturing these guys from test match level to test match level to, it's his 5th cap. We used to, when we went to 2019 World Cup, we used to say we don't want to go for a guy under 8 caps, 9 caps to the World Cup. Yeah. And I think it's been well documented. I don't think there's been a World Cup won with a flyer of less than 24 years old.
What does Australia make of the bomb squad selection the Box put out? Here's new Wallaby coach Joe Smith.
And there are risks, talking to Vern Cotter, who's obviously a good mate of mine around the Blues this year. They went with a 6-2 split, got 2 injuries very early on in their back line and played a halfback on the wing for the whole of the second half, well, even more than the second half. So you can get stung by it, and so any innovation is great until it's not, I guess.
Some football news. Quickly, Richards Bay and their head coach, Vusimuzi Vilakazi, have parted ways by mutual consent. Said the decision was made by the club's new sponsor, Pakwe Gas. Gas are sponsoring 100 million rand over 3 years with the club. So now the rich boys have reportedly set their sights on Pitso Mosimane and Benny McCarthy. That's where the money is.
Yeah, now we're talking.
All right, let's talk Olympic Games. 10 o'clock this morning, there was sports climbing. It was the women's boulder and lead semi-finals. So boulder was first, lead is tomorrow. African champion Lauren Mukiba failed to score a point. She'll hope for better in the lead competition, though. Shame she had a tough day. We had the advice and tips for her. In athletics, the women's 400-meter repechage round saw Miranda Kutsia run her personal best time of 50.66 seconds, finishing second in her heat, at times good enough to book a spot in the semi-finals. In the canoe sprints, men's kayaks doubles 500-meter heats, Andrew Burkett and Havish Lovemore placed 4th. They'll need to race in the first of 2 quarterfinals from 2:30 this afternoon. The fastest 4 in that race advanced to the semis. And the same for Esty Oliver and Tiffany Koch in the women's kayak doubles 500-meter heats. They finished well back and they will head to the quarters. Coming up in a second, the men's 200-meter repechage round. Benjamin Richardson's involved there. Joshua Brains is involved from 1 o'clock in the men's speed qualifying. That's over in like 4.5 seconds. We're going to talk about that in a second. Athletics tonight, men's 400-meter semi-finals. Zakiti Nene and Laith Pillay are both involved in the semis, 25-8. Just after 8 o'clock, the women's 400-meter hurdle semi-finals sees Zane Geldenhuys and Rogel Joseph involved. I want to talk about the explaining sports. Hurdles. Right? Women's hurdles in particular been around since 1900 for the men, 1984 for women, the women's 400-meter hurdles. 10 hurdles placed evenly around the track. The women's hurdles are 76.2 centimeters high, which is pretty high.
It's very high.
In terms of technique, the 400-meter hurdles is arguably the most demanding event in the sprint and hurdles group. By the way, women's football semi-finals tonight, 6 o'clock. The USA take on Germany and Brazil take on Spain at 9. Medals tables at the moment, the US on top, 79 medals. People's Republic of China have 53. France, 48. South Africa in 29th place overall with their 4 medals. And finally, I think Olympic organizers are missing on a trick, right? Naming the sports hurdles and climbing, all those kind of things. Yeah. So I've decided that speed climbing should be the Spider-Man challenge. Kayak cross, if you've ever seen kayak cross, that should be called battle boats. Handball, we've discussed, is violent netball. Beach volleyball is just tanning with extra steps. But then we come up with other names. 100-meter dash, boring, right? How about the speedy sneakers showdown? Or high jump is the skyward hopscotch. The 100-meter breaststroke is the splash and dash. Gymnastics floor exercise, the twist and tumble takedown. Archery is the bullseye bonanza. The javelin throw, I like this one. Spirit to win it. Huh? Okay. The spirit to win it. Fencing is the sword play showdown, and diving is the splash spectacular.
Yeah. I just want to place it on record that I had very little. In fact, let me remove myself entirely from everything that you came up with.
You agreed with the Spider-Man challenge.
Only Spider-Man.
Spider-Man challenge and battle boats.
But that was yours.
The battle boats was mine. Yeah.
Everything was yours.
No, they're
I
all
just
mine.
agreed with those two. Everything is yours.
I think we're gonna change the bullseye bonanza for archery. Is
I
my
like
favorite.
that.
Yeah.
That one's got potential.
What sport do you do? The
Bullseye bonanza.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, it's got potential. But it's gonna be interesting. Listen.
What?
Pole vault last night.
Yes.
Duplantis is just on another planet
He
altogether.
is not quite as good as Sergei Bubka yet. Everybody's forgetting Sergei Bubka. You
and I were talking about Sergei Bubka yesterday.
Yeah, because we're old. Sergei Bubka has broken more world records than the Swede did yesterday. So he's still got to improve himself. He's only broken it 12 or 13 times. You see.
But did you see the guy? Did you see his form?
Yes, it was spectacular.
Right.
It's all about that. Must be such a difficult sport.
And just how he's just too cool for school. This guy, Duplantis.
Yeah, he needs to put some effort in.
He's just lying there,
Try
waiting, like, no, I'm not gonna jump. Move on to the next height. Yeah, let's see. Let me loosen up here.
I want to see sweat. That's
effortless.
They must look like they're trying.
No, it's too easy for him. He's got no competition at the moment.
There's something for me to do instead of maybe bouldering, which I'm an expert at now.
You and I both.
We do the pole vaulting from now on.
Your guys,
okay,
bouldering was brutal this morning. Bye, John.
Divas in Concert, a monumental event, a captivating celebration featuring Simpiwe Dana, Thandiswa Mazwai, and Makazi. Hosted by the ever-charismatic RPC. Join us on the 10th of August from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. at Max Park Sports Complex. Tickets are available now at Web Tickets. For a chance to win tickets, follow the Star newspaper at @the_Star_News on Twitter.
Paying your TV license means that you can tune in to the Expresso Morning Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Mondays to Fridays right here on S3. Enjoy our entertainment, recipes, and important current affairs and updates. All of this for less than 74 cents a day or 265 Rand for an entire year. For superfast, secure, and convenient payment from any device, go onto tvlrc.co.za and click on the Fast Pay button for payment in under 3 minutes. Make a difference with Expresso and TV licenses and pay yours.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m.
Right, that time when we get to listen to some of your views on the stories we've brought or whatever's on your mind. So let's listen to those first.
Good afternoon, Sakina. Sakina, as much as I don't condone what that community is doing there, but truly speaking, South Africans, people have lost faith in our police. I mean, South Africa has become a lawless country. Really, anyone does as he pleases. No one is cared about anything. Even that's why even foreigners come from their country, and when they get here, they can be involved in drugs, whatever, because they can see to it that South Africa is a lawless country. And when we complain, when we speak sometimes, we'll be told how xenophobic we are. But these things, they happen, and we on the ground sees them. Thank you. It's Martina from Bloemfontein.
Sakina, Willie here in Kuma. Sakina, these immoral sons of Belial, I refer to these pastors who are doing nefarious things, who are lower than the snake's belly, must rot in jail with such nefarious activities. You see, these nasty activities from our pastors originated from our neighboring countries, brothers. You see, such as the Omotosos, such as Shiburus, you name them. Now, our pastors now got poisoned, and look what Mutwening is doing there. Mboro. Thank you, William Kuma.
Well, thanks for that. And of course, I'm just going to put a pause on that because we did promise as soon as we're able to get eyes, visual on what's happening in Katlehong, we will take you there. So as reported earlier, a church believed to belong to Pastor Paseka Mboro Motsweneng in Katlehong, which is southeast of Johannesburg, has been vandalized, and we believe it's been set alight as well. Now, this follows a violent altercation of which has been circulating on social media platforms since yesterday. But we're joined on the line now by Sowetan reporter Cathy Mohlahlana. Cathy, thanks so much for speaking to us here on Update at Noon. Please just give us a sense of exactly what is happening. Has the church indeed been vandalized and set alight?
Hi guys, hi viewers out there. Yes, definitely the church has been set alight. There is actually nothing left of the church currently. It's literally just scrap metal that is sticking out of the ground, the things that used to actually hold down the tent. That's the only thing that's left. Probably like part of the stage is the only thing that's also left. There is literally nothing, as also the scrap collectors also came to take what they can while the firefighters are still trying to put out some of the smoke and flames on the ground.
Gwena, as far as the community is concerned, they obviously are angry, which is why they perhaps have gone over to this vandalism and the arson that is currently taking place. But what are they saying? Have you been able to speak to any of the community members around there?
Yes. I have been able to speak to a few community members on the ground here. I spoke to one gentleman who told me that this matter had, if Pastor Mboro had handled the situation at the school yesterday a little bit better, this would not have resulted in his church being burned. And unfortunately, he handled it in the most horrible way, which is why his church ended up burned. And obviously, they're very much frustrated. The school has been closed now by the students. They don't want to go to school anymore because they are traumatized by what happened, especially considering the fact that the school premises is against the whole bringing weapons to school, and yet still Pastor Mboro did not go according to this rule. Another gentleman that I spoke to also said that this whole matter is actually a justice in itself, because obviously this morning that we heard from the police that 4 suspects have been arrested, but Pastor Mboro was not among the the suspects themselves. And so they're saying that this is actually a justice served well, because at the end of the day, there needs to be somebody who needs to be accountable, and they are very much actually pleased by what has happened and hope it's a lesson for all to learn.
Gwen, as you say, the members of the community you speak to saying that this is perhaps them meting out justice for what happened at the school yesterday, Matsidiso Primary. But do they feel that this is it, this is the end of it, or are they still threatening any more violence? What are they saying in that regard?
Honestly, in this regard of violence, furthermore, they're just saying that this might be the start of it. They're not tired at the end of it. They will still be around. There will still be more protests. I cannot confirm and say that there may be more fires set alight, but they're definitely saying that the protests will still continue going on.
And just finally, Gwena, any word on the children who were removed from the school? Do we know what has happened to the children? Are they still with the suspects who removed them, or have they been returned to the guardian, who is the maternal grandmother?
At this point, I cannot really confirm whether or not they have returned to the guardian, the grandmother, but we did hear from the police this morning that the children are indeed safe and they are in safe hands.
Cathy Mohlahlana, thank you so much for your time. Sowetan reporter who is in Katlehong confirming for us that indeed that building has not just been set alight, it has in fact been razed to the ground at this point. So that is the situation in Katlehong. The community setting alight that church belonging to Pastor Paseka Mboro Motsweneng after a video that went viral on social media yesterday depicting him and a few other men who went into a school and forcefully removed 2 children wielding pangas, and also an assault rifle being carried by one of the men who entered the school premises. So this is a developing story. We heard from the Department of Education as well as from the police minister earlier talking about the arrest. But as Cathy Mohlahlana, the reporter from Sowetan, indicates, Pastor Mboro seemingly not one of those who was arrested. We'll play more more of your voice notes in a short while.
Attention ladies, join us on Saturday, August 17th, 2024 for the Star Choices Yours Women's Day event at Altitude Fourways, a day dedicated to empowerment, inspiration and transformation. Engage with dynamic speakers, attend interactive conversations and connect with amazing women just like you. The event will be hosted by the fabulous Unatingai. Don't miss out on this opportunity to celebrate and elevate yourself. Get your tickets now at www.quicket.co.za for 550 Rand, drinks, food and a gift bag included. Plus, stand a chance to win an honor product. This incredible event is powered by independent media and the Honor 200 series.
AVBOB is sharing mutual value with AVBOB members like never before. Introducing AVBOB Member Rewards. Qualifying AVBOB members now enjoy even more benefits. Don't miss out on your chance to get rewarded. Visit the AVBOB website to learn more or simply register on the AVBOB self-service portal at selfservice.avbob.co.za to opt in or visit your nearest AVBOB branch for assistance.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
It's 10 minutes before 1 now. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says that over 20 suspects were involved in a shootout with police last night in Khayelitsha Township in the Western Cape. Now, Mchunu says that he welcomes the police's action when they intercepted a cash-in-transit robbery where 8 suspects were killed and 5 others were arrested. Mchunu says that criminals who shoot at police will be met with the full might of the law.
And they were met with gunfire. And they then had to defend themselves by firing back. And on doing so, they left a number of people dead, 5 dead, which increased in the course of time. I think it increased to 8. And then, other than that, they arrested others. Now, it's important that we mention this because I must mention 5 AK-47s were found there. AK-47s. Now, this is a very high caliber weapon, and it's related to war. You don't carry. It's not a knife. It's an AK-47. 5 of them. And then there was also an R1. There were also another assortment of weapons. And all in all, the group was around 20, if not 21, who were caught there. And all of them, on seeing police approaching, they responded by gunpowder. Now, I read a newspaper called Sunday Tribune, and I picked up 2 things there. There was a phrase that was used, I think, by the journalists who wrote that, talking about trigger-happy police. Trigger-happy police. They don't talk about trigger-happy criminals. They don't talk about trigger-happy other criminals, other than those who get caught in sins, in crime sins that form the context thereof. A number of crime sins in the near past in KZN.
And that was Police Minister Senzo Mchunu a short while ago. So to look at the issues of guns in our society and seemingly a proliferation thereof in South Africa, we're joined on the line now by researcher at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organised Crime, Jenny Irish Qoboshiane. Jenny, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Update at Noon.
Pleasure, thanks.
So, Jenny, this is something that people, I would imagine, discuss, amongst themselves with their friends in their own little corners. But it is also a discussion that has found expression in broader society. South Africa and how we are exposed to gun violence and its traumatic effects. Where are these guns coming from?
So you would have a pool of legal firearms that exist within the country that would be either in the hands of civilians and would be in the hands of state institutions. And then you have a massive pool of illegal firearms. And if one looks at the pool of illegal firearms, what we are seeing increasingly is that we are, in the past, where a lot of those illegal firearms would have been from hangovers from conflicts here within South Africa, as well as from conflicts in neighboring states, with a lot of cross-border trade in those weapons. Now, some of that cross-border trade is still happening, and particularly when one talks about like brand new AK-47s, etc., we do see them still coming across the borders, but a significant number of guns are coming from our own domestic market, and that would be from two particular sources. The first would be from civilians who either lose their firearms during a crime or a robbery, or civilians who negligently lose their firearms. The other source would be from the state itself, where you have an incredible number of firearms in the state's hands. And I'm not just talking about the police and army here, who are definitely culprits in terms of firearms going into the illicit markets, but other government departments. I mean, I think if you look at the number of firearms in circulation in state departments, it's more than 1.3 million firearms that are in the hands of different state departments and entities. So we're looking at firearms that come across the border, but not in as significant numbers as we were seeing in the past. And we're also looking at firearms coming from our own domestic markets, which is often the bigger market, where firearms are coming partly from civilians, but also coming from state institutions and departments who are losing firearms at quite a significant rate.
And of course, Jenny, both are equally concerning. You have the ones that are stolen from civilians, but if you look at AK-47 rifles, just looking at what they recovered yesterday in the story that we were referring to in Khayelitsha. So you've got AK-47 rifles, R5s, R4s. These, of course, are not from civilians. So how is the state accounting for the firearms in their care?
I think that is a huge problem that needs to be addressed. So the R4s and R5s would definitely be state issue firearms, because that's what the state use. Private security use a similar firearm, but it's an LM firearm. So if they're R4s and R5s, they would definitely come from state sources. The AK-47s, we do have some AK-47s in state hands. Some of the special forces, for example, in the army would use AK-47s. We do have some AK-47s in SAP stores, etc. Some of the newer AK-47s would be coming across the border. But I think for us, a huge problem is, yes, we need to deal with cross-border trade in firearms, but we also need to deal with the domestic markets. And a key component of that is both firearms and ammunition coming from the state. We feel that there isn't enough accountability and consequences for state people in the state departments that lose firearms. And the police, we're talking about both police issue firearms as well as firearms that go missing from SAP stores and armories. In the SANDF, we would be talking about firearms that go missing from armories or are rented out by SANDF people. And then there's a whole pool of firearms, in fact, more than in the hands of the police and army put together, in the hands of other government departments and entities, and they very seldom report. At least when it comes to the police, we know what police issue firearms are being lost each year, even if that figure is not completely accurate. We have some idea, not completely, of the number of firearms that go missing from SAP's 13 stores and armories. When it comes to other government departments, we don't know how many firearms are going missing from those departments, and there isn't a proper reporting process or consequence or the way in which missing firearms are handled by those other government departments and entities.
But if we look at the traumatic effect on society, why does government not think that this is important? Because apart from the police and army, as you go through departments, you start to question why we need so many firearms in our government departments to begin with.
Well, there are two issues for us, and here I'm not talking about the police and army. There would be two issues for us in this. The first is your question: why do we need so many firearms in the hands of other government? Why do we have other government departments and entities combinedly having more firearms in the police? That is a question that we definitely need to be asking ourselves. The second is, how are those departments and entities treating firearms? Because our experience is very often they treat the loss of a firearm as the loss of an asset, the same as a loss of a chair or some other fixed asset, movable asset in their department. And we think that needs to stop. One of the things for us is to start forcing different government departments to actually declare in their annual reports to Parliament and whatever, how many firearms they have in their possession, why do they have that number of firearms, and how many firearms were lost or stolen or have gone missing during that financial year. Then at least we can start getting some accountability for what is happening around state entity firearms.
Jenny, I wish we had more time. We have to leave it there. But thanks so much for your time. That was Jenny Irish Qoboshiane, who is a researcher at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. Fascinating insights there. And yeah, a lot of questions that are raised. Unfortunately, didn't have enough time to get back to your voice notes. Apologies for that. We'll do better tomorrow, as I always say, and we endeavor to. And thanks to everyone for participating, for listening in, and to the production team for putting it together and making sure it went out loud and clear. And let's do this again tomorrow. Here's Mudupi Makhalimele with your latest news at 1.
Thanks, SK. The top stories at 1 o'clock. Minister condemns the violent incident at a Joburg school and a child neglect case opened against a KZN woman. A very good afternoon. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has condemned the violent incident at Matsiriso Primary in Katlehong, east of Joburg, where 3 men threatened the lives of teachers and learners. One of the men is well-known South African pastor Paseka Mboro Motsweneng, who is seen wielding a panga, and another man is seen with an assault rifle on the school premises. The incident is believed to be related to a conflict between 2 families over the custody of learners enrolled at the school. 4 suspects have been arrested in connection with the incident. Mchunu was briefing the media in Boksburg on the sidelines of the last day of the ANC Lekgotla.
The incident yesterday in a primary school in Katlehong, it's something that we condemn. When a community leader or a citizen carries what appears to be firearms and a bush knife, go to an institution like education for whatever reason, brandish such things like a panga and cause commotion because that causes anxiety among children and among parents of other children. We condemn that, and we know that police are dealing with it. They've arrested 4 people, and we are hoping that more arrests will come as it becomes necessary.
The High Court in Joburg has postponed former President Jacob Zuma's private prosecution case against his successor Cyril Ramaphosa to February next year. This to allow the appeal process before the Constitutional Court to be concluded. Zuma, however, is still supposed to appear before the court in his capacity as private prosecutor to ensure that his matter remains on the court roll. Judge Dario Dosio handed down the order.
As per the draft order, dated the 6th of August 2024, it is hereby ordered, having heard counsel for the private prosecutor, the criminal proceedings are hereby postponed to the 6th of February 2025. And secondly, the private prosecutor shall at that stage appraise the court regarding any developments in the matter.
A case of child neglect has been opened against a Kranskop woman in KZN after 4 of her children were found to be living on their own. It's believed that the children between the ages of 10 and 16 have been living on their own while their mother was alleged to be in Pietermaritzburg. The children were taken in by a neighbor. Provincial Social Development MEC Mbali Shinga says the kids have since been taken to a place of safety.
I was concerned about issues of security. Upon assessment by our social workers, the immediate intervention was that we remove these kids. The case was opened by our social workers against the mother because we discovered that she is collecting grant for all 4 children, so she cannot really neglect them like that.
The problem of Zimbabwe can only be solved by Zimbabweans themselves. This is according to EFF leader Julius Malema. He was responding to tough questions from Rhodes University students after addressing a public lecture at the institution.
You need a clear position from SADC which gives the timelines that by this time this should have happened. But otherwise, Mnangagwa is going to come back and he's got nothing to offer at all. So Chiwenga is done. He will not be anything. They used him. Chiwenga is no longer the most powerful military man in Zimbabwe now. They have weakened him. So only the power of the youth of Zimbabwe can change the political status quo. And the Zimbabweans have to know that we are with them.
And stock markets in Japan have bounced back from some of the heavy losses they suffered yesterday. The Nikkei rose by 10% shortly after trading began. It had plunged by over 12%, the biggest points fall on record, as the world markets reacted to fears of a possible slowdown in the US. The BBC's